Okay.
Hello. Hello.
9, 8.
Very cool. Dumelang, South Africa, and welcome to a very special build-up show here on Parliament TV. And thank you for joining us. Lebitso la ka ke Tshepo Mori.
Good afternoon, Sanibonani Molweni, and a good afternoon to our viewers at home and those watching in across the nation. We are broadcasting live from Parliament, and we are standing on the precipice of a significant moment in our democratic calendar.
Absolutely. And it has been a hectic 2 days in the Dome. We have witnessed robust debates, sharp critiques, and passionate appeals from members of Parliament following President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address. Now, today, we reach the culmination of that process.
And that's right, Sepo. In just under 2 hours, at exactly 2 p.m., the president will ascend to the podium in the Dome to deliver his reply to the State of the Nation address debate. As you just heard, we are here nice and early from 12 o'clock to set the scene, to reflect on the past 48 hours, and to look ahead to what promises to be an interesting address, given the robustness of the debate on Tuesday and yesterday.
We have a packed show for you. We're going to be looking back at the key flashpoints from the debate. We heard from party heavyweights, we heard from new MPs, and we dissected their position on the president's vision for the year ahead.
Exactly, and we will be bringing you some of the highlights, the moments that stood out, the promises that were questioned, and the alternatives that were put on the table regarding service delivery and economic recovery.
Now, for the public watching at home, you're exactly where you need to be. You're watching DSTV channel 408. And you can also stream this live on Parliament's website or catch us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel or X, formerly known as Twitter, page for real-time updates. And of course, we are live for the next 2 hours. We're going to be speaking to some political parties that we didn't get a chance to chat to with earlier this week. And we want to get their final thoughts, of course, before they walk into the chamber and hear the president's response.
So settle in. This is the calm before the discourse. This is the build up to the reply to the SONA debate, and we are glad you are watching us.
Now, as always on Parliament TV, our goal is to be the house of all voices. We extend our invitation to all political parties represented in the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces to join us and share their perspective with the South African public. We sincerely hope that those who were unable to join us this time due to prior commitments or scheduling challenges will take us up on this offer in our future programming. We firmly believe that for our democracy to thrive, all political parties must form part of Parliament's public programming. It is through engaging with this diverse range of views that we can truly reflect the rich tapestry of the South African society. Let's get started, Tembinkosi. Let's kick things off by looking back at what the leaders had to say on day 1 and 2 of the debates. Here's the EFF's Sihle Lonze.
How can the Minister of Higher Education publicly declare that there's no plan or solution to absorb all the learners that pass matric in post-secondary education? During your State of the Union address, Mr. President, of the Nation address, you proudly announced that this is the highest number of matric passes in this country's history. But what is the point of celebrating statistics when you know deep down that thousands of these learners are going back home because there is no space in post-secondary education? What was even more worrying is that when we asked the Minister of Higher Education about additional spaces, he spoke to us about CET centers. CET centers are primarily designed for community education to serve adults that want to write matric or redo their examinations. They are simply not structured, funded, or even mandated to absorb the large numbers of learners who have already passed matric and are seeking post-secondary education. I don't know where Minister Nzimande is. Can you please educate the young man, because clearly he doesn't know anything about higher education. We were also not surprised when Honorable Kusela Diko attempted to steal the victory of the EFF on data. Unfortunately for her, the people of South Africa know that it is the EFF that fought for data to expire in South Africa. But what do we expect from someone who was implicated in stealing PPEs while our people were dying during COVID-19? The data victory of the EFF is not PPE, Minister. It cannot be stolen. We won't entertain Minister Nchaveni's statements about Economics 101 because we know that she's inspired by the CEO of Capitec, who said unemployment is 10% in South Africa.
Mr. President, as you are aware, many Black-owned businesses and startups lack access to credit due to the restrictive credit regulations and policies. Our banks are among the most profitable in the world, lending where the markup is high on short-term credit finance, such as mortgage, vehicle finance, and credit cards, and are not necessarily productive. To address this challenge, we must establish accessible standards for cooperative banks, mutual banks, and banks, particularly in the digital age of fintech, including the Post Bank. South Africa, let us welcome the decision by the ANC-led government to prioritize infrastructure development as reflected by the over 1 trillion allocation in the medium term for infrastructure. To support an increase in infrastructure investment, we should significantly increase the capitalization of the Development Bank of South Africa. This should be done in order to increase its reach and impact, which significantly supports municipalities to improve access to water and sanitation, roads and infrastructure, and other infrastructure development. Furthermore, the realization of Regulation 28 of the Pension Fund Act must be a non-negotiable. Phakama South Africa and make sure that the establishment of sovereign wealth fund happens in the short term. You have all the tools and capabilities to make it a reality. Firstly, we have the state capability through Public Investment Corporation, which has increased its assets from over 2.5 trillion in 2023 to over 3 trillion in 2025. Secondly, the PIC can act as an incubator of a sovereign wealth fund, which should be capitalized by the fiscal and various capital mechanisms. We should also create a linkage with the resource rents. As we rise, we must remember that we have the power to transform South Africa's financial architecture. We have no fear to enter spaces where many fear. We must debate, agree, and change our monetary, fiscally, and credit policy so that they are inclusive and benefit all who live in South Africa. Phakama South Africa. Unleash the entrepreneurial energy of your people. Support them to compete locally and participate in trade. Break down the barriers and ensure that the people share the wealth of the country. As you rise, rise with your people and leave no one behind. We are South Africa and South Africa is us. Madam Speaker, South Africa iyabonga kumongameli for his action-driven State of the Nation address.
Welcome back. And before we get started with different political parties, let's start off by talking to a young lady who conducted a research on the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, Ms. Aluncedo Zikhali. Youth unemployment remains one of South Africa's most persistent socio-economic challenges. Over the years, government has introduced a range of interventions aimed at creating opportunities for young people, particularly in vulnerable communities. One such intervention is the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, which has sparked thousands of South Africans into temporary employment across various sectors, including basic education. But how effective has the program really been at local level? We are now joined by Ms. Aluncedo Zikhali, a PhD candidate at the University of KwaZulu-Natal and co-author of a research study titled An Evaluation of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative in Addressing Youth Unemployment at Winnie Madikizela Mandela Local Municipality. Ms. Zikhali, siyabulela kakhulu for being with us here on Parliament TV this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Aluncedo Zikhali. I'm from Bizana in the Eastern Cape. I'm currently doing my PhD in public administration at UKZN and also working for the university.
Thank you for that brief intro, Ms. Zikhali. Can you briefly share with our viewers at home what motivated this study and why it was important to evaluate the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, specifically at municipal level? Also, as you respond to that, talk to why you chose Winnie Madikizela Mandela Local Municipality as your case study.
Okay, thank you so much. The motivation behind the study came because of the high rates of youth unemployment, especially in rural areas of the Eastern Cape, including Winnie Madikizela Mandela Local Municipality. I have decided to evaluate the program because I have realized that youth unemployment has been a challenge and it continues to be a challenge. And I have noted that there are programs that have been developed before, including the EPWP and many other programs to try and address youth unemployment. But youth unemployment is continuing to grow. So I decided to evaluate the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative just to find out what's going on with the program, how is it different from other programs, and how effective it is in terms of addressing youth unemployment, especially in South Africa. I chose Winnie Madikizela Mandela Local Municipality because it's one of the rural municipalities with high levels of youth unemployment, with high levels of unemployed graduates. And I decided to evaluate the program at a municipal level because I believe that it is where the program is implemented and where most beneficiaries have experience or exposure to the program.
Now, at headline level, how effective was the initiative in addressing youth unemployment in the area you studied, which is Winnie Madikizela Mandela? And your study also indicates that the program achieved short-term gains. What exactly did those look like for the beneficiaries?
Okay, I can say that, in fact, the findings reveal that the program was partially effective. Also from my own experience, because I was also part of the program, so it was a personal thing for me. The program was partially effective because it assisted a lot of young people with work exposure, experience. They managed to earn stipends and support their families. As a result, I think 90% of the participants that I collected data from indicated that before they joined the program, they have never worked anywhere. So it was their first time having employment and earning a salary. So the program did work, but partially. I am saying this because after the program ended, young people went back to being unemployed. There was no exit strategy, and some of them could not even use the experience that they've gained in the program to secure future employment. I'm saying this because the program was implemented in the schools. It did work for someone who had an education background or who started teaching because they did manage to use the experience that they have earned in the program to get more employment or even get employed within the same schools. But for other people who studied different qualifications, for instance, myself, I studied public management and administration. I was part of the program working as a general schools assistant. Now, let's say a post is advertised in one of the government departments. They want someone who have experience in the public sector. I come and say, okay, I do have 6 months experience in the public sector that I have gained during my tenure at the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. But now they're going to ask, okay, what were you doing? Is it relevant to what we're looking for? So I felt like the program did work, but mostly for people who studied education. But for others, people who studied other qualifications, it did not really work. Because, for instance, I studied public management and administration, but I was working as a general schools assistant, including cleaning classes and ensuring that the entire school is well taken off. But now I can't even use that experience when it happens that there is a post, maybe they are looking for an admin. I can't say, okay, I have experience because it's not relevant experience. So that's why I'm saying that the program was partially effective, but we cannot run away from the fact that it was a big program. It absorbed high numbers of young people. But the fact remains that it was partially effective because of the reasons that I have mentioned.
Now, your study highlights the absence of a withdrawal or exit plan. So why is this such a crucial, rather a critical issue? And what risks arise when programs create temporary employment without long-term pathways?
Okay, thank you so much. So, as I have said before, there was no exit strategy after joining the program. You would work for that 6 months, and then when the contract ends, you go and stay home. You are unemployed. And now, let's say, okay, I believe that when a program is implemented, there's supposed to be an exit strategy. I believe that a lot of money was spent on that program for people to just given an opportunity to work for 6 months and then go back home. At least if there was an exit strategy or maybe a referrals to other departments or maybe at least maybe even certificates that young people can use to knock on other doors to say that, okay, I'm looking for a job. I have experience. I was working in this program. This is my certificate. But there was nothing. You will just work. And then when the contract ends, there's nothing. So I feel like there was a lot of money that was used in the program. But all those people that were observed by the program, they went back home without anything. They were not even absorbed in other departments. At least if these people were placed in departments that are relevant to their qualifications, they will be able to use the experience that they have gained to get something else.
Now, your findings suggest that many participants reported limited or inconsistent training. What does this tell us about the program design or its implementation?
Okay, thank you so much. So many participants reported that they were not trained. Some of them said that they only had induction, and some of them even said that they were not even sure of their all roles and responsibilities because they were not trained. They even had to learn from the job. And I believe that training is very important. When it comes to a job and all these youth programs, they should I mean they should be able to offer training because offering training to the people that you have employed, it means that you are equipping them with skills and knowledge on how to do their job. So now imagine joining the program, but you are not trained. You just work. And then after the program, you you do not even come up with any skill. I believe that training is important because that training, they will be able to use it to develop themselves and also look for other opportunities.
So, what were some of the most significant challenges beneficiary experienced in terms of payment delays, workplace dynamics, and administrative burdens?
Okay, the first challenge was the payment delays. There were always issues with payments. So my study focused on the implementation of the program for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And beneficiaries reported that on phase 1, they experienced payment delays, even on phase 2 and even on phase 3, which means that there was no evaluation that was done in the program, because there is no way a challenge that was experienced in phase 1 is still there in phase 2, is still there in phase 3. This means that there was no proper evaluation, because they should have evaluated the program after each phase just to check what went wrong, what went well, how can we improve. But if now challenges that were experienced in phase 1 were also experienced in phase 2 and phase 3, it means that there was no proper monitoring and evaluation. And another challenge that was experienced by the beneficiaries was the bad treatment from the school teachers, even the HODs, and so on. They were sometimes asked to do work that was not even part of their job description. They worked the beneficiaries reported that some of the teachers or HODs even kept on reminding them that they are there because they need a job, but there are no jobs in South Africa. So they reported a lot of mistreatment from the program. Another challenge was paperwork. There was too much paperwork for the beneficiaries that they had to submit monthly, and also for the principals who were the project managers, and also the officials from the Department of Education. They also reported that the paperwork was a lot, so they had to even work extra hours because the program was new, so they had their own work that they were doing. But now they had additional work because they had to make sure that all the documents are correct, receive the documents from the principals, capture them, and so on. So all the beneficiaries, the project managers, and the Department of Education officials reported that there was too much paperwork that was required on the program.
Now, based on your findings, would you say the program was adequately planned, monitored, and evaluated? I know you spoke on the evaluation, and if not, what practical improvements would you recommend for strengthening the program, especially its governance?
Okay, thank you. I can say that the program was not properly planned, but I understand that because the implementation of the program was rushed because there was the issue of COVID-19. The youth unemployment went up. So I believe that there was pressure from the government to come up with a solution. So there was no proper planning and monitoring that was done on the implementation of the program. As I have said, that there were a lot of challenges, and some of the challenges continued to repeat each other. I will suggest that when these programs are planned, there is proper planning, and the young people who are the beneficiaries are involved in these programs. They should be able to have a say. They should ask, what do we want as young people? What would benefit us more? And when they are planning, they should be able to have an exit strategy. You can't just say, okay, we have issue of youth unemployment. Okay, we're gonna implement this program. And then what happens to the beneficiaries after the program? I believe that the programs should not just focus on short term. Youth unemployment is not a short term issue. It's something that is continuing to grow. So programs should be aligned to this issue. They should be able to be sustainable and be long-term.
Now, what should policymakers take away from your study? And should programs like the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative focus primarily on short-term relief or long-term labor market integration?
Okay, thanks so much. Policymakers should know that short-term programs do not really work. These programs should be designed in a way that they can be sustainable. Young people can use the experience, the skills they have to secure future employment. And I would recommend the program to be expanded in other departments, not only to be based at the schools, so that young people are placed in departments or areas that are related to their qualifications. This will help in instances whereby when someone who started this qualification is placed here, they will be able to for also those departments that these young people are placed at, they will be able to absorb these young people. So imagine putting someone who studied HR, public admin, marketing at a school. Like, what are you going to do there? For people who studied qualification that are related to the public sector, there are a lot of other government departments, such as the Department of Home Affairs, the Department of Health. There are a lot of them. So I recommend that this program to be expanded to other departments so that young people should be able to be placed in areas that are relevant to their qualifications so that they can be able to use those skills and experience that they have gained one day to secure future employment instead of just coming up with a short-term solution for youth unemployment. We need something that is long-term, something that is sustainable.
Phambi koba ndikuyeke ndikhulule alincede ngaba myalezo mni onawo kubantwana okulutsha olukule program njengoba sithetha nabo sebephumile kulo program ingaba ngomphi umyalezo wethemba ongathi ubanikeza wona abantu abatsha?
Okay, thank you. Okay, umyalezo endinawo from ulutsha olukule program and also those that are currently sitting at home unemployed, and also those that are currently in varsity. I would say that to those that are part of the program, they should grab the opportunity with both hands. And some of the beneficiaries or the participants that took part in my study, they mentioned that they used some of the money to start up businesses of their own. So I would recommend to those that are currently part of the program to try and think about how they can use the small stipends that they receive to just save and opening those small businesses for themselves. And to those that are in varsity, I would recommend for them to not just be there to study. They should be involved in everything. There are a lot of opportunities in varsity. There are a lot of leadership programs, just any opportunity to develop yourself. They should start on building their CVs while they are still in varsity, because it's so painful for you to obtain your degree and only to find out that you do not have even a 3-month experience. They should be involved in those programs that are offered within the university, such as the PAL programs and so on, so that they can be able to gain that little experience that can help them. And to those that are still looking for jobs that are currently not employed, I would recommend them to not give up, to continue looking for jobs. I'm not saying that they are not looking for job. And I believe that no one is just sitting there at home not looking for a job. I believe that everyone is looking for a job. I want to tell them that they must not give up, they must continue applying, but they should not only depend on applying and so on, as we know that unemployment in South Africa is very high. There are literally no jobs. They should also do some skills training, some certificates, anything that will help them in terms of securing employment. And they should also try and look at the entrepreneurship side, because to be honest, being a young person in South Africa is a real struggle. Like, so they have to try by all means to be involved in anything that they can help them, even if there are those youth workshops hosted by the municipalities, they should attend, so that they will be able to get some knowledge and information, for instance, on how to start your own business, and also any assistance or funding that is available from the municipality or other stakeholders such as NYDA, SEDA, and so on.
Ms. Zikali, thank you very much for your insights, and we wish you well in your studies. And soon, we hope that when we invite you again back to the program, we'll be addressing you fully as Dr. Zikali.
Thank you so much, and good luck to everyone who is looking for employment. And yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zikali. Now, programs aimed at tackling youth unemployment remain vital. But as this research reminds us, the real measure of success lies not only in access to temporary work, but in sustainable pathways, meaningful skills development, and long-term economic inclusion. Please stay tuned to Parliament TV as we build up to the President's reply to the State of the Nation address debates that took place over the last 2 days.
Honorable members, I want to concentrate on issues of people that have petitions to me. I want to indicate as well to our fellow South Africans that the issue of the national disaster has been discussed in the previous parliament, sixth parliament, in terms of what is it that we want to see as women of this country. And I can recall vividly so that multi-party caucus, one of the issues that we've been deliberating on is GBV. In a sense that we say that when you speak, when you address issues of GBVF, you must ensure that you leave no one behind, being a disabled person, being LGBTQIA+ societies, being vulnerable, marginalized, and oppressed people. And indeed, in your speech, you are very clear in terms of those that you think that must be included and prioritized as we address gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable members and Honorable President, I want you to address the issue of the chronicles of GNU. When everything goes well, it's us as partners. But when it's bad, it's the ANC. So when you speak with them, when you speak on issues of statement of intent, you must touch on that issue. Honorable members, I was to indicate to your good selves that in terms of GBVF, we have 100 days program of action that includes all the sectors. That includes the GCPS, those who are sitting at the Select Committee of Security and Justice, they understand what is it that I'm talking about. That sector seeks to address issues that we've been dealing with of duplication of programs, duplication of resources, yet not addressing the problem. So what is happening, honorable members and fellow South Africans, in that particular multi-sectoral, integrated program approach is that everybody identifies her pillar or his pillar as the department and speak on what is it that they will be doing in 100 days. And I can tell you, President, one of the responses that 100 days has made is issues of maintenance. For us, issues of maintenance as women is not only issues of economical issues. They
touch on socio-economic issues of our realities as Black women, in particular in South Africa. So you go now to any magistrate court, you can get a report that tells you in terms of how far are they in terms of collection, and it is digital. The issues of protection order, we're no longer dealing about a withdrawal of when you are in a honeymoon, then you go and withdraw. No. You go and withdraw, there are consequences. So it shows that we are very responsive in terms of dealing with the GBVF. Honorable President, I want to say to you, the narrative of a survivor and a beneficiary differ. Honorable Nongcebo, when she was here, she was very correct to say that that's what you said, that South Africa rise. Because as the president, you know the inability and the ability of people that you are leading. Honorable President, I want to petition to you to say, whatever that we did during G20, let us use all the modalities, the techniques, and every plan that we could have executed. Because if it worked when we were receiving the chaba, it can work every day to ensure that we build safer communities.
Mr. President, you continue to pay lip service to stopping illegal immigration and illicit trade, which goes hand in hand. My colleague, Honorable Alan Beasley, bought cigarettes and alcohol within one block of this precinct at a fraction of the price of the regulated products. As long as politicians and political parties benefit from the situation, nothing will change. Despite the fact that these products, companies, compromises the health of South African citizens and destroy their access to employment, not to mention lost tax revenues. You said that corrupt criminals will face consequences, yet you yourself face no consequences for the illicit possession and foreign currency to the value of $580,000. What's more, you failed to report the theft of this contraband to the South African Police Services. The silence from your party and your GNU partners on this stinks of the worst kind of expediency. As for expediency, why are Deputy President, it's not my house, actually it is my house, Mashatile, Zweli Mkhize of Digital Vibes Infamy, and Tembi Semelani of VBS Notoriety not charged and prosecuted? Lifestyle audits, my foot. Even the MPA officials have refused lifestyle audits, and it's clear as to why they do that if you watch the Madlanga Commission and Ad Hoc Committee on our TV screens daily. No, Mr. President, you cannot fictionalize your legacy. It isn't shaped by spin, but by facts. You are right about your government and your bloated cabinet of ministers promoted above the Peter Principle, lurching from one crisis to another. Local government is a mess, and your stopgap intervention in Johannesburg before the G20 summit was like putting a plaster on a septic wound. The pus is oozing out again, and there's no water in the taps, despite the Vaal River system overflowing. This is a reflection of what your government has come to represent. Your MEC for Health says sleeping on a hospital floor is a preference. The Gauteng Premier, Antoinette Lusufi, says he too is inconvenienced by having to shower at hotels. This reflects a callous disdain for lived reality of South Africans. At last, you have intervened in the foot and mouth disease disaster. This 4-year-old outbreak has not been contained due to the systemic neglect and collapse of the ARC and Honest Report biological products that were once world-class facilities. The previous administration spent R500 million to build a World Organization of Animal Health recognized good manufacturing practice vaccine production facility, and we have nothing to show for it. The Minister of Agriculture is sitting on the investigative report, and those responsible for this disgrace are still at the forefront of controlling the disease. Mind-boggling. This state-controlled disease is out of control. Comprehensive vaccination is no one's inspirational decision or choice. It is a desperate last resort because the spread of the disease can no longer be contained. Take note that the Western Cape government, who've jumped the queue to get vaccines, are now also wanting to procure their own vaccines because they don't believe that the bureaucratic bungling of the responsible department and ministry will deliver them to them. If your disaster declaration is to be successful, it's not to ensure the control of animal movement and further destroy economic livelihoods in the sector. Your sole focus should be the urgent acquisition and delivery of enough affordable and effective vaccines, something that the department can't seem to do, and to facilitate the emergency vaccination of contaminated and uncontaminated herds. Vaccination of clean herds mitigates against devastating production loss and livestock mortality. Farmers and their cattle are literally dying for vaccines.
Welcome back to Parliament TV. The dust is settling on President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address, but the debate over its substance is heating up in the chamber. On Tuesday and Wednesday, we saw fierce exchanges as parties delivered their responses, and one of the most pointed critiques came from Action SA. Their leader in Parliament didn't hold back, arguing that the president's plans to tackle crime will fail unless he simultaneously addresses the twin challenges of illegal immigration and illicit trade. Now, to delve deeper into these critiques and to understand what Action SA plans to bring to the floor this year, we are joined in studio by Ms. Malebu Kobe. Ms. Kobe is a member of the Parliament representing Action SA, and since arriving in 2024 is the party's youngest parliamentarian. She brings a unique blend of international experience to the House, holding a master's degree in international relations from Jilin University in China, and having worked in the International Relations Directorate of Gauteng Premier's office, as well as with the League of Arab States. Ms. Kobe, thank you so much for making time for Parliament TV.
Thank you very much for having me, Tepo.
Let's start with what your leader in Parliament had to say, right? Now, he was very direct in his critique with the President's SONA address. Now, specifically linking crime to illegal immigration and illicit trade. Now, can you elaborate on what Action SA believes the President is missing in his current approach to crime?
Look, I think, Tepo, as Action SA, we're very clear in terms of illegal immigration. And the reason we are very adamant about it is because illegal immigration has a multiply effect. So we don't just have people who come in illegally into the country and undermine sort of or overburden our public systems. What we also have is that there's an economy that comes with these people. That economy undermines a legal economy that is operating within the legal framework. We really, as Action SA, are advocating for a system in which we are tightening our borders. We know who's coming into our country, where are they working, and why are they operating in the shadows? They need to operate within the legal frameworks of South Africa. That's for the benefit of our economies, and also that economy feeds into our basic services, in which they will highly rely on when they are inside the country. So, as Mr. Trollip was talking about it, the illicit trade, our legal economy right now is limping, by barely growing by 1%, which means that it will not be able to absorb the 12 million South Africans who are unemployed, and that's the reality of it. Meanwhile, the illegal economy is booming, and it's growing by 6%, and mostly because of your illegal cigarettes and alcohol and counterfeit goods that make their way to the border. There's an old adage that says that money moves when people move, and when these people they're moving economies. But why aren't these economies within the legal framework? And this is why we're so adamant as Action SA to say that we need our people, or the people who come into our borders, to be recognized legally, to tell us why they're here, what are they going to do, and when are they leaving? That's if they do leave.
Now, of course, with that, Ms. Kobe, there is a thin balance that we need to do there, because you are at the risk of even being called xenophobic, right? How would Action SA then balance that by ensuring that the legalities of your argument are being heard over the idea that we are anti-African people or anti-foreigners coming into the country?
Look, as Action SA, we're very clear, and this was also submitted in our response to the white paper of immigration. And the person who heads it is our chief whip, Lerato Ngoveni, and she was very clear to say that let's allow asylum seekers. We understand that the emblematic challenges within the African continent. We know that there are security issues. People face that on a daily reality in their countries, and they come to the country seeking asylum. But we can only limit that to so much. I mean, we are a limited country with limited resources, and we have capped the number. We said between 10,000 to 15,000 immigrants could come and be, granted asylum, so that they could be in South Africa, enjoy the safety of South Africa, and enjoy the services that are provided in South Africa by South Africans. But we must understand that our taxes can only go so far. And when we have an influx of people that we cannot measure, continue to come in the country, consume our services, and pay absolutely nothing for that, that is highly, I mean, it's even highly offensive to ask of a country with limited resources, with people who are hardworking and who pay taxes to ensure that the country runs optimally. Yeah.
Now, of course, just last week, of course, on Thursday, the president spoke of strengthening the police and the NPA, right? Now, you're arguing that that is not enough. Now, with that, practically, what specific policy levers or legislative changes would Action SA be pulling at then to tighten the net on illegal immigration and illicit trade that the president isn't currently considering?
Look, there isn't a collaborative effort in terms of interagency collaboration with regards to that. So your SARS, your National Treasury, your SAPS, your National Defense Force, and your Home Affairs. And we need that to be tightened and to be put into a legal framework and not just a gentleman's agreement or memoranda of understanding. And that's why we need reforms, legislative reforms that speak to those issues that are targeted and speak to multiple agencies at the same time, ensuring that when we curb it on one end in terms of SAPS, we're not overburdening SAPS, and that we're ensuring that Treasury also plays its part, and SARS as well. So we need to empower them. And once we give them that legislative mandate, we're able then to fund those policies, those programs as well. And that gives it expression in the on a practical level. One thing that, there isn't enough political will, and I can tell you it's because it's expensive. It's not just expensive on our fiscus, but it's expensive for those who are benefiting from this. So the political will, we can see it, that there are political parties also who are benefiting from illicit trade that is happening. They're high-ranking politicians. I mean, the Madlanga Commission is just an expression of how deep the rot actually goes. And I think with the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee, with everything that is being revealed, you can see why there isn't enough political will, because those who are at the helm are actually those who are benefiting. And that is why there isn't enough. When Ethel Trollip was saying that he's paying lip service, it is exactly that. We're going to come back again next year, and we're going to have the same problems, probably a different commission, much more expensive, which is going to waste taxpayers' money, and we're going to delve into the same issues.
Now, in that regard, then, of course, you mentioned the Madlanga Commission. Before that, we had the Zondo Commission. We're still sitting with the report, right? And now we had the Nkabinde Commission as well, that is also looking into the NPA, I think, in KZN. What are we missing? I mean, the president says that he's going to invest in lifestyle audits with the NPA officials and also the SAPS officials. What is it that Action SA feels that we are missing?
We are missing handcuffs and orange overalls. That's exactly what we're missing. If that was done during the Zondo Commission, we wouldn't find ourselves in a position where people feel incentivized to go and do more crime, and they come back, even with higher positions, they are rewarded after being named in the Zondo Commission. They're then given positions right here. Some of them are our colleagues. They come and sit right here, and they're named again in the Madlanga Commission, and they're still not in overalls. And everything that is in those reports are taken as recommendations and suggestions. South Africans need a decisive leader. They want people in orange overalls, and they need crime to be disincentivized. What we are seeing right now happen in the Madlanga Commission, what we are seeing with Ket Matala, what we are seeing with our officials, the MM from Ekurhuleni, what we are seeing is an incentivization of crime. And that's why that continues to happen unabated. We're going to have another commission of inquiry, because somewhere, somehow, even in this emergency funds that are being given, the billions of rands that are taken and channeled towards water infrastructure. From those billions, we are going to have another commission in 3 years. And we're going to find out exactly who benefited from them. And, as luck would have it, you might even have someone sitting on the commission who was implicated in one of the reports, but sitting in the commission asking witnesses questions.
Now, let's connect the experience to policy, right? Now, you hold a master's degree in international relations from China, right? Now, and you've also worked in the League of Arab States. Now, from an international perspective, how do I mean, South Africa border management, right? And the immigration policies, how do they compare to other countries? And what is it that we can learn from other countries?
I think South Africa is quite laxed in our approach. And also we haven't allocated a sufficient budget to manpower, because no matter what digital innovations that we have, we still need manpower to stop people from actually coming into our borders. Tepo, if you do go to China, I can tell you right now that you will not be able to get in until you're thoroughly screened. The country agrees why you're there, for how long you are there, and they must also agree on their end. It's not just an application on my end to say that I want to be there for 3 years to study. They want to satisfy themselves and ensure that they're okay with it. I mean, it gets to even a point where where I was in China, they've got such a handle on you that they even change your name. They give you a name that is compatible with their systems. Yes, to ensure that everything that you are doing is within their frameworks and it works for them. But in South Africa, currently what we have is a free-for-all. People come here and establish their homes, and I mean, the Bryanston home, where that home was, yes, it's a great example of how people come in with their own norms and standards of how they live in their countries, and they come and really transpose that into South Africa. I mean, a high-end suburbia like Bryanston, but you have shacks there and makeshift living arrangements, because that's what they transpose from their countries. And it's very important that when people come here, they come and live within our frameworks and our rules and our laws. And we must have strict enforceability. I mean, without us being able to enforce that, everything that was said is a pipe dream.
Of course. And of course, then having worked in the International Relations Directorate in Gauteng, you've seen the provincial impact of illegal immigration,
Absolutely.
right? Now, how do issues like illicit trade and undocumented immigration specifically affect Gauteng's economy and social services, and how should that influence national policy?
Gauteng has become the hotspot in our country that is overburdened in terms of the flows of human that goes on there. The health sector is crumbling. We have seen, I mean, even the MEC says people prefer sleeping on the floor because of how full it is. And I think that what we need to start focusing on a national level is that we need to start empowering and rural communities, so that we don't have this huge movement that is targeted towards places like Gauteng. I mean, develop our rural economies. Look at the Eastern Cape. Look at the Limpopo. A large population of people who are talented have no opportunities, and the situation looks bleak because our government has just neglected those areas in the periphery, and they focused on urban areas. And that's why the migration is so bad, and it is compounded by illegal immigration for people who want to go to the economic hub of Africa. So I think that it is important that as a country, what we have done what they have managed to do in Gauteng, it must be replicated across the country, especially in rural communities. We've got hardworking, talented South Africans. They just need development opportunities, and for our economy to start unlocking those opportunities for them.
Now, let's look at Action SA and its agenda for 2026.
Yeah.
Right? Now, of course, as the newest and youngest member within your party, what are the key pieces of legislation or oversight issues will Action SA be prioritizing in the National Assembly this year? And where do you personally intend on investing your time?
All right. So as Action SA, our legislative agenda for the year is to combat corruption. I think in the wake of the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee, we have decided to take a non-nonsense approach towards corruption. We've declared it public enemy number one, and we are going to have a sustained legislative war against corruption. So we're starting with the Foreign Whistleblowers Bill, which was introduced by myself, and that's where I'll be spending most of my personal time. And then it's going to be followed by the Zero Tolerance Bill towards corruption, and also the eventuality of it is that as a party we're advocating for the NPA to be independent, and that's what we need. We need it to have its own budget. It must not be under any minister or under a political interference. We need it to be free from that. And maybe if that's the case, we would have less lifestyle audits that we have to worry about the NPA. But coming back to the Foreign Whistleblowers Bill, where
Yes.
you have said that I'll be spending most of my time, it's because we have seen how people have died, how people like Babita Deokaran, Marius van der Merwe, Marume Peña, all of them have risked their lives to actually put a fracture in these corruption networks. They've spoken quite extensively about it, and they've paid dearly with their lives. And what we need to do as a country is that we need to ensure that we increase protections for them. And over and above that, we need to create an incentive and incentivize their bravery. What we have seen, and because criminals are so brazen, they've killed them in broad daylight in front of their families to send a strong message out to say anyone who speaks out will pay for it in their with their lives. And we need to be very intentional about increasing protections, but also creating a reward system that incentivizes them to come forward. We know that not only are they victimized, with threats, but we know that they pay dearly with their livelihoods as well. And so with whatever it is that you come forward and you say, these are the facts, and we are going to, ensure that that process goes on anonymously. Whatever it is that they bring forward, and the case is successful, 5% goes back to them. It goes back to them. And one might say that 5% maybe is a little, between 5 and 10%. But imagine this. We have seen that there's a certain individual, Maumela, who has 4 Lamborghinis, very identical, all blue, just in his driveway, parked there. And that's about 800 million, from the 800 million tender that was from Tembisa. With just a bit of that amount, I think we can take it back to the people who have brazenly come forward and exposed and opened the lid on that corruption. We need about 5% to go back to them so that they can restart their lives. And also, once you start becoming a whistleblower, you are tainted. It's difficult for you to get a job anywhere else because you are labeled as a problem. So it is important that not only do we protect our whistleblowers, but we ensure that the system rewards them for their bravery. It is self-funded, so it doesn't need to come out of the fiscus, but the money needs to then, after going back into our fiscus, reward them in some way and go back to building our hospitals and our schools. And so that's the whistleblower bill that the following whistleblower bill that I will be championing throughout the rest of the year.
And just lastly and briefly, Malebu, why Action SA? We have local government elections coming up. Why local Action SA? What's different?
What's different? So maybe I'll start with the premise of not only do we have credible leaders, but we have an insanely talented pool of young people who want to serve South Africans in earnestness. And the president has dedicated 156 billion rand, just shortly, 156 billion rand towards water infrastructure. And we still don't have a response as to how that money has been used. But if you go to municipalities where Action SA actually serves, where they are professionalized, that money is used very well. South Africa's municipalities lack professionals who can run them. We are all running towards, national leadership and in parliament and wanting to be ministers. But in earnestness, talented people who are professionals are needed at local government level. And as you can see, Dr. Nasipi Moya has been doing brilliantly. And that goes to show that if you have the right people at the right place, the money would be used optimally. We wouldn't have this crisis that we have if we had more professionals in our local government sphere. It does not matter how much money we throw to the problem, but if we don't have the right people who put in place the right systems, we can never have a well-functioning city like we have in the city of Tshwane with Dr. Nasipi. So let's replicate it throughout the rest of the country with talented individuals like Olani Kumalo and our upcoming mayor in the city of Johannesburg as well, who's yet to be announced.
So some exciting times there for people that want to vote for Action SA as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think to put this in as well, but what leadership do we need? Because I mean, in municipalities, you have buildings that are dilapidating on a daily basis, right? There's issues of infrastructure not being maintained. What kind of leadership do we need now within local government? I mean, throughout all those spheres, what leadership is needed?
Look, and I say this in earnestness, and that's not to say that people who aren't professional in what they do should not be appointed, but that's what we need. We need a strict professionalization of local government sphere. Ever since the dawn of democracy, since 1994, there has not been professionalization of the public service, especially at that level. And I can tell you there aren't even performance reviews that are done. There are only two, top management that are reviewed on their performance. But the reason we have issues like the collapse of water, it's not because we have a drought.
Yeah.
With the water crisis, it's not because we have a drought, but it's because we don't have the right skilled personnel. So our municipalities are not capacitated with professionals because political parties have learned to put people there purely by patronage, and they also extend patronage to other people, their friends and their families. But we need people who can do the work in a highly technical environment like water and sanitation. You cannot have a former teacher somewhere who's working in that. We have high vacancy rates across all our municipalities. I have traversed a lot of municipalities, and I can tell you that the vacancy rates are high because they don't know who to put in. They're not putting in the right people. But over and above that, the system wants to ingratiate those who will select them again. And it comes at the cost of South Africans, because if you don't have people who know that 8% of your budget must go towards your infrastructure maintenance, then you find yourself with maintenance that does not live up to its lifespan and breaks, and it affects service delivery at the core where our communities are. So it's important to put the right people in. It's important to have professionals. Dr. Nasipi Moyo, I mean, she is a doctor in that regard.
Yeah.
And over and above that, people who have just the willingness. What Dr. Mashaba did in the city of Johannesburg, he surrounded himself with technocrats, people who knew and people who could get the work done, and he's a very decisive man, very pragmatic, very decisive, and he's just all about action. And that's why I'm so excited for our voters in these coming local elections, because we are saying we're all about action. Put us in your municipalities, make us your mayors, and you will see how local government should look like.
Ms. Kobe, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, that was Ms. Malebu Kobe. She's a member of Parliament for Action SA, sharing her party's strong views on the SONA debate and outlining their priorities for the parliamentary year ahead. Now, you may follow the proceedings on our social media platforms using the hashtag SONA2026 or our handle at Parliament of RSA. Now, let's reflect more on what was said in the chamber just yesterday.
For decades, South Africa has owned the largest property portfolio in the country, yet too many assets stand vacant, vandalized, hijacked, or underused. At the same time, the state spends up to 6 billion rand every year leasing private buildings. We own prime property that stands vacant.
Thank you.
Yet we pay rent for plush offices. We hold strategic land parcels in the metros while people live in informal settlements. We sit on an enormous asset value base, yet we don't generate any revenue to fund asset maintenance. These contradictions end today. The truth is, honourable members, that the current model was never designed to build value, making reinvestment in maintenance and upgrades almost impossible. And the result has been predictable: decay, inefficiency, and lost opportunity.
I will send these to you.
The South African property investment vehicle changes that logic entirely and flips the script on unrealized property asset values, maintenance, and investment. Work on this reform began more than a year ago, learning from best practices both domestically and internationally to create an asset book that generates wealth for the public for generations to come. Let me be clear about what this vehicle actually is. It is a ring-fenced, professionally governed investment platform that consolidates income-generating and strategically located assets into a single structure with one mandate, and that is to unlock value for reinvestment. It introduces the best in asset management, development finance, and property development. It establishes a verified digital asset register, a single source of truth covering ownership, condition, leases, valuation, and performance. And for the first time, the state will manage its property portfolio with real-time data and not fragmented spreadsheets. It separates the roles of owner, manager, and developer, introducing professional property management expertise to run leases, maintenance of assets, life cycle planning, and tenant performance with commercial discipline while building book asset value. It creates structured long-term development rights that allow private capital to invest in pre-tenant upgrades, mixed-use housing, and redevelopment. And it reforms the revenue model to generate income from these assets to support our maintenance. This is how we move from being reactive maintenance owners to planned life cycle managers. This is how we reduce the billions currently spent on leases. And this is how property stops being a liability and starts being an asset. The vehicle includes a dedicated development capability, funding bulk services and pre-sent preparation, so underutilized land becomes bankable projects. Clear project timeline will allow private sector partners and sovereign funds to participate with certainty. In Swane, the government pre-sent program shows that this is possible through 30 projects with more than 1 million square meters of development and roughly 33 billion rand in phase 1, transforming lease payments into appreciating assets. Phase 1 on its own can eliminate over 400 million rand in annual lease costs and deliver a portfolio valued between 45 and 55 billion rand once it's complete. Phase 2 expands this momentum. It focuses on the refurbishment of underutilized public buildings, bringing them back to life. And it also means jobs. Nearly 100,000 direct construction and indirect jobs are projected, with up to 60 billion rand in broader urban economic activity catalyzed in the program. It also means well-located public land in the inner city of Johannesburg being used for housing close to transport and employment, not standing fenced off or unlawfully occupied. It means hundreds of residential properties being offered to those who serve our communities, including nurses, police officers, and teachers. The state does not need to own all of these assets, and neither should it. The DA fundamentally believes in using state assets to build generational wealth through houses that families can call their own. No longer will these homes stand idle while those who serve our country struggle for accommodation. Consider Telkom Towers, a building that has cost the state close to R1 billion and yet remains unusable. We're finalizing an RFI to convert this dead asset into productive accommodation for government departments. Consider Youngsfield and Wingfield, prime underutilized defense land with the potential to create new communities while lowering maintenance costs and restoring dignity and bringing those closer to economic opportunities.
The 2026 State of the Nation address delivered by the President, continuing along the same economic path adopted since 2019. These so-called structural reforms, supported by institutions such as the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They promote liberalization and greater private sector involvement in public infrastructure. In simple terms, this means opening key public sectors, electricity, railway, ports, and water, to private profit-making interests. Through programs like Operation Vulindlela, government is advancing reform that shift the state away from direct control towards regulating private capital. But the question we must ask is very simple. Who benefits? Between 2015 and 2024, our economy grew at less than 1% per year. Expanded unemployment stands at over 42%. Between 10 to 12 million South Africans without work. Inequality remains extreme. Yet policy directions continue to favor private accumulation. While the share of national income is going to workers' decline, we cannot regulate our way out of poverty while opening strategic infrastructure to profit-driven interest. On crime, the president rightly acknowledged its seriousness and supported the deployment of military to assist the police as advised by the UAT. However, crime is not just policing issue. It is rooted in unemployment, inequality, and economic exclusion. Without addressing structural drivers of poverty, crime will persist. It is also surprising that the President speaks strongly about corruption and crime prevention without directly addressing the unresolved concerns around Impala Parasaka. When a head of state calls for accountability, transparency must begin at the highest office. Public trust cannot be rebuilt selectively. Ethical leadership requires openness and full disclosure of what has been raised serious national and international concern. South Africa cannot continue stagnation, deindustrialization, and austerity while hoping for different results. The vision of the Freedom Charter, public ownership on monopoly industry for the benefit of the people, remain relevant today. Strategic sector must serve the national development, not private enrichment. We need strong development state, capable public institutions, industrialization, ownership and control of the land, quality education, accessible to healthcare, and real accountability.
Welcome back to Parliament TV. The State of the Nation Address debate has concluded, and we've heard various voices from across political spectrum. We now turn our focus to hear from one of the key partners in the government of national unity, the Inkatha Freedom Party. And during the debate, the IFP struck a supportive tone regarding the president's speech. But as a party with its own distinct identity and manifesto, they also laid out their specific plan of action for the year ahead. To delve deeper into their position, we are joined in the studio by the IFP's Chief Whip in the National Assembly, the Honorable Mr. Nhlanhla Hadebe. Mr. Hadebe is from Ladysmith in KwaZulu-Natal and brings a wealth of experience from his years in local government, including leadership roles in the party's youth brigade and its provincial executive. Mr. Hadebe, thank you very much for gracing us in our studios today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's best that we start our conversation with providing some clarification to those who would have been watching the debate yesterday. We had the Minister of International Relations indicating that the ANC won the recent by-election in the South Coast in Mzumbe. And before the House adjourned, the Deputy Minister of Transport, Mr. Mkhuleko Hlengwa, got up to clarify to say the IFP had actually won the by-election. Who won?
Well, perhaps let me firstly say a by-election is won, not claimed. What the Minister of International Relations was doing yesterday was to claim the by-election. But in actual fact, the IFP won the by-election.
Well, there it is, viewers. Now you know who won the by-election at Mzumbe in the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal. Now to get back to the topic before us, Mr. Hadebe, before SONA, you issued a statement calling for comprehensive and action-oriented address from the president, specifically highlighting rural development and economic relief. Now that you've heard the speech and participated in the debate, how satisfied is the IFP that those calls were headed? And if not, What was missing?
Well, from the IFP's perspective, I would say it's like the president was reading from our script. The SONA speech delivered by the president touched on almost all the issues that we had raised as the IFP. So we are satisfied with the delivery of the speech, in a sense that the content of the president's speech talked much about and on the matters that we had raised before when we issued the statement on our expectations. So I would say we are happy.
And you previously noted that the level of consultation within the GNU has improved a great deal since last year's budget impasse. Did the spirit of cooperation extend to the crafting of the SONA? And do you feel that the IFP's input is genuinely reflected in the national plan of action?
Well, perhaps we need to remind ourselves that in as much as we are in the government of national unity, but there are roles and responsibilities. Even in cases where it's a one-party state, the president is mandated by the Constitution of the Republic, Section 84, subsection 2D, that the president is responsible for summoning the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, to a joint sitting to exercise or perform the extraordinary duties that he has as the President of the Republic. And that, again, in the Constitution, it is stipulated that the executive authority of the Republic is vested in the President. So in that case, the President, whether he is the President of the Republic by a total majority of his own party, he does not even necessarily expected to consult even members of his own party, because in the Constitution of the Republic, it is well stipulated that the executive authority of the Republic is vested in him. But in the spirit of cooperative governance or running of the Republic, the President, from time to time, do that consultation within the executive, because he cannot speak about any department unless the minister responsible for that particular department has given a report or the state of the state of affairs insofar as that particular department is concerned to the president.
Mr. Hadebe, your party has presented its own plan of action for the year. Now, beyond the president's priorities, what are the IFP's specific legislative or oversight plans you will be pursuing in Parliament in the year ahead?
We, when we were outlining our expectations before SONA, we went further and recommitted to working together with other political parties that are part of the government of national unity. And we recommitted to exercising oversight, because in as much as we are part of government, but as a political party that represents and that came into Parliament with a mandate from the electorate, we have to hold everyone, including our own, who are representing us in government, accountable, so that when we go out to our constituencies, we will be able to give a clear and practical report of what is happening in the government. So holding government to account is something that we are going to pursue.
Now, one of the key priorities for the IFP has been the review of the 1998 white paper on local government, which you've previously described as critical. So what concrete outcomes does the IFP want to see from that process, particularly regarding the role of traditional leadership and municipal funding models?
You know, traditional leaders play a critical role as a stakeholder in governance. They stay with the people on a daily basis. When we are here in Cape Town, they are out there with the communities. So they are better placed to know what the communities want. So for them, if you go to the sphere of local government, especially in local municipalities, there are structures like the executive committee of the local house in local municipalities and in the districts, but they are just there merely as spectators. We would want to see a situation or an outcome where their views would be incorporated and considered, even when local municipalities are doing or drafting their IDPs, so that we know that everyone's view has been accommodated when government prepares plans for service delivery and or plans for developments in the areas. And again, there is an element of impracticality when it comes to the funding model. I would make an example with the capital projects, the infrastructure, that the focus is more on new projects. There may be big chunks of monies or a relatively satisfactory allocation of funds, but for new projects. And you will find less focus on accommodating existing infrastructure to do maintenance. That is why you see many of our towns in the Republic, they are struggling because the infrastructure is aging, the infrastructure is dilapidated, and you find that municipalities are struggling because there is no money for maintenance. Money that is there has been allocated for new projects. So we hope that the review of the white paper will be able to address that particular challenge. And again, you know that with the high level of unemployment, our communities find it very hard to pay for services. And that poses a very serious challenge to municipalities because by legislation, they are expected to collect revenue. And the question is, how do you collect revenue from an unemployed citizen? So it's sort of those things that we hope the white paper will be able to, in a way, address, so that we know that when it's budget time, there is enough budget for new projects to develop infrastructure, but there is also enough budget to maintain the existing infrastructure.
Now, Chief Whip, with the local government elections on the horizon, how will the work of the IFP in the GNU lay the groundwork for the party's campaign messaging, particularly in providing that you can be a constructive national partner while also holding the executive to account?
You know, we are very much happy and satisfied that the Department of COGTA was assigned to the IFP president because of his experience in local government. You would see that he has been able to revamp or revitalize that working coordination between national government, provincial governments, and local government. Because if there is no coordination, a proper practical coordination and handing over of duties between these spheres, it becomes very difficult for the sphere in local to successfully deliver services to the people. So for us as Inkatha Freedom Party, ours is to demonstrate our experience in government, to demonstrate our commitment to good governance, and put that on the table so that even those that have not tasted our expertise in governance will be able to see that this is what the IFP has in terms of service delivery.
Now, I want us to zoom in the service delivery on the ground, especially in the areas that are governed by the IFP. We recently saw the protest over water supply in Mtuze, within the city of Mhlathuze, a coalition-led municipality. Now, water scarcity is a massive, massive challenge. And what innovative solutions then is the IFP championing at local government level to address the crisis, and how can those solutions be replicated nationally?
Well, firstly, the IFP encourages, on the side of the communities, we encourage, I would say, the financially able people to pay for the services, be it teachers, members of the police, but everyone who is employed and financially able to pay for services. That's our call. So that we empower our municipalities to give back in a form of services or in a form of service delivery. And so that we empower our municipalities to maintain and fix infrastructure challenges. But on the side of municipalities, one, you have to address it at the point when political parties deploy councillors. Minister Hlabisa, the president of the IFP, has made that call to political parties to say, please deploy capable leaders. And another thing that we need to do as people in government is to discourage everyone and to say, let's do away with cadre deployment so that we know that when we deploy people to local government, we deploy capable leaders. And a combination of all those things will give you a situation where the municipality is financially stable to fix the infrastructure, to maintain the existing infrastructure, and to provide services like water. And the communities on the other side will be in a position to pay for services. And we also encourage leaders in local government to constantly engage with communities so that even if there is a challenge in a particular area, but people are clear about the nature of the challenge and they are clear about the timelines on which the challenge will be addressed. In that sense, we believe that we can be able to avoid and minimize service delivery protests.
Mr. Hadebe, before I let you go, in less than 30 seconds, wopha umlayezo abantu bakwaZulu abanothi babe bayawuthatha kule nkulumo beyethulwa ngumongameli.
Well, we made a call for rural infrastructure development as Inkatha Freedom Party. The president did touch on that. We made a call about small-scale farmers development. The president did touch on that. We made a call on small businesses development. The president did touch on that. So, in a nutshell, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we make a call to all South Africans that they must give this government of national unity a chance and work with us as political parties who are part of this government of national unity. And us working with the people, we can be able to achieve what South Africa needs.
Chief, basibonge kakhulu ukuthi uthathe isikhathi ukuthi uzokhuluma nathi la eParliament TV.
Thank you so much.
Viewers, that was IFP Chief Whip and Member of Parliament, Mr. Nhlanhla Hadebe, giving us the IFP's perspective, just like the other parties did over the past 2 days. You may follow the proceedings on our social media platform using the hashtag SONA2026 or handle @Parliament of RSA. It's also safe to indicate that we have invited all the political parties that are represented here in Parliament, but others could not join us here in the studio due to other commitments. But please do stay tuned.
South Africans are not xenophobic. They are desperate and sick and tired. If the state cannot manage its borders and cannot manage its economy, immigration policy must balance Pan-African solidarity with national interest. South Africans come first. Order is not hatred. Lawlessness is not prejudice. Mr. President, you, by the way, remain stuck in the past when it comes to foreign policy. On the Western Sahara, I know you guys are going to complain. Your administration continues to parrot outdated positions while the continent moves on. On the 31st of October, just last year, 2025, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 2797 with the majority support and no objections from the same BRICS that we are part of, our partners, affirming autonomy proposals for the most feasible solution to end this 50-year conflict. But you are still behind. Guided by President Zuma's engagement, by the way, in 2017, when he was in your seat doing a far better job than you, he met His Majesty Mohammed, and the MK party has supported the autonomy proposal as a practical solution that preserves African unity and presents the further balkanization based on colonial borders. Peace talks commenced in Madrid just last week, 2026, between Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, and the Polisario Front. Direct implementation of the 2797 resolution was discussed. The process is moving whilst you stay behind. The autonomy framework is detailed. The peace track is alive. We call on this government to align with these developments and support a lasting solution, guided by realism, not outdated ideology, rigidity.
Welcome back to Parliament TV. And if you've just joined us, the State of the Nation address last Thursday has set the tone for the busy parliamentary calendar, and the debate surrounding it as well is underway in the chamber. Now, today we want to get the perspective of one of the newer voices in our political landscape, a party that has positioned itself as a disruptor of the status quo. Now, we are delighted to be joined in studio by Ms. Nobuntu Webster, the co-founder and deputy leader of Build One South Africa, or BOSA. Ms. Webster brings a wealth of experience from outside the traditional political arena as a respected business and community leader. Her extensive work includes chairing the Business Women's Association of South Africa, leading the youth chapter of the International Women's Forum, and her foundational role in SA's Women's Commission, which brings together women to drive change. Ms. Webster, thank you so much for making the time to come to us at Parliament TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here. The real voice for the people.
For the people, Parliament TV. Yeah. Now, Ms. Webster, of course, let's talk about the official response to the State of the Nation address. It was just last week. We just want to know, what is your party standpoint, and what is the core message and the central lens through which BOSA evaluates the president's plans?
So we evaluate the president's plans firstly on track record, past delivery. We evaluate the president's plans on budget and the feasibility of those plans on the basis of, is there budget to even be able to implement any of these plans? We then lastly evaluate the president's plans on the leadership that he has appointed and entrusted. And when it comes to that, I really do want to speak a little bit more to that, because the SONA happened on the back of 3 events that had put a lens, zoomed into what we have as the leadership that the president has chosen to entrust. We had Gwede Mantashe, who at the start of the year spoke to young people in quite a disdainful manner in terms of young people and their unemployment and the reasons they're unemployed. We then had an MEC in Gauteng of Health, Nomantu Nkomo, who spoke and said that the patients who actually don't have beds in some instances choose to sleep on the floor, also disdainful. Then the day before, we had Premier Penaza Lusufu saying that when there's no water, he showers at a hotel. So this is the kind of leadership that we're talking about, and the sense to which that leadership's removed from the realities and the challenges and the urgent nature of those realities in society.
Now, talking about realities versus the promises, the president spoke about progress and plans, right? From your perspective, especially as a business leader and a community leader as well, where is the biggest gap between what was promised in the speech and the lived reality of South Africans within their communities?
I think the first is, it would really be helpful if the president would, in his speeches, first of all, reflect on and report on previous promises. The biggest gap is in promises that have existed before and that the president has made in previous SONAs, and then adding more promises without actually reporting on or having delivered on previous promises. And so the issue with that is that you have promises that have been made before, you have a gap, which I say most of the time is a budget and leadership gap, and then you're making new promises. So the gap is in that. The second gap is in that they honestly, like I said, seems to be quite a distance with the lived reality of South Africans. The president, as an example, did commit in the last SONA and say, we are going to make sure that we end the water crisis. Those were his exact words. A year later, we are even in deeper crisis with the water crisis. And as Build One South Africa, we have for now 3 years been talking about the water crisis. I have personally, in 2024, written to all the mayors in Gauteng and asked them to make sure that they have water emergency funds, because we could see what was happening with infrastructure, with lack of skills, etc. But there hasn't been the right kind of intervention when it comes to those issues. So the gap really is with implementation, it's with budget.
Now, talking about the water crisis, you say that BOSA identified that there is a problem with infrastructure, with capacity. What is missing? Because I feel like these are foreseeable things. When it comes to infrastructure, you have to maintain, you have to build capacity, you have to develop. What is the problem with the leadership that we currently have in our municipalities?
Mismanagement as a start. So there's mismanagement of funds, there's mismanagement, and there isn't the right channeling of budget. So that's the first. The second is there's a lack of meritocracy. So you have people who don't have the requisite skills in technical positions. We don't lack water engineers in this country. They're just not in those right positions because of patronage. So that is some of the gaps that we have. And so when you look in the municipalities now, you have infrastructure that has aged because there's just been pure mismanagement and in some instances corruption. And we know about the mismanagement of municipalities, and that is something actually the president has spoken about even before, and so on, is that should have received very, very direct oversight. Municipalities through the cooperative governance department, making sure that they are better managed. And so those are the issues we've seen. It's lack of maintenance, it's mismanagement, it's lack of meritocracy. And those are things that can actually be intervened on.
Now let's shift to the women's lens, and given your extensive work, right, in the Business Women's Association and SA Women's Commission, what did the address offer for the women of South Africa? I mean, were there specific commitments on economic inclusion, perhaps safety of women? GBV is a big issue, right? Or the support for women entrepreneurs that stood out for you when the president delivered that speech last week?
So, I mean, it was touching to hear the president refer back to 1956 and commemorate the 70 years. That was touching. And Sophie de Bruyn was there, and she was made to stand up, recognizing the participation and the influence of women when it comes to the struggle and when it comes to our democracy and our freedom in South Africa. Absolutely incredible. However, when it comes to the lived reality of women today, again, we've had commitments from the president. The president pronounced a 40% procurement target for women's economic inclusion when it comes to public procurement. We, at this point, have had a report from the Treasury's gender budget statement or report that reports that only 12.6% of procurement spend, public procurement spend, goes to women's businesses. And this is some years ago. So again, the gap between pronouncements by the president and then the actual implementation that happens. We have had recently the pronouncement of GBV as a national disaster. There was not enough the president gave on that and what that actually means and what is actually then really happening and turning that around. So we have a lot of symbolism, which is great and inspiring, but not enough actual implementation when it comes to the leadership of women, the economic inclusion and advancement of women, and the safety of women in this country.
Now, you have been very passionate about ensuring that the sex offenders list is made public, right? You have said that we know the victims' names, but you never really know the perpetrators' names, which is pretty much unfair. Now, in that case, what has the work of BOSA done, and what is it that we can expect within that front?
We continue to advocate for the National Register for Sex Offenders to be made public. We had a commitment pretty much a year ago from the Minister of Justice to say it would go public. We are writing to the Minister. We have sent questions last week through Parliament, one of the parliamentary mechanisms that we're using to get an update from the Minister on what has happened with the Sex Offenders Register. We've written to the Minister on Basic Education with regards to the number of educators that are on that list and what is being done to make sure that there is an up-to-date register of educators who are on that list. We continue to do the work of advocating for that register to be made public. we have great public support when it comes to this from men and women, because it is one of the interventions that speaks to prevention, because a lot of what we see that we're working with, it tries to tackle post the actual occurrence of sexual offences. We want interventions that deal with preventing sexual offences.
And just lastly and very briefly, for 2026, what can South Africans expect from Build One South Africa?
For 2026, you can expect us to continue as a small party in parliament, but that uses every single mechanism, every single platform at our disposal to hold the executive to account. We are specifically intentional about small business and small business development, trade and industry, because we believe that is part of the economic turnaround in this country. We are specifically vocal about the Department of Education. You will have seen last year, we brought a motion to Parliament to increase the pass mark, the minimum pass mark for subjects to 50%, which actually had great support in Parliament from a number of parties. We're going to continue on that, and we're going to lobby more support from more parties when it comes to that. And lastly, our leader is chair of the Appropriations Committee.
Yes.
And as we come to budget now, it's going to be important that we're looking to see all these commitments that have been made, where is the budget for that, and making sure that there's accountability and transparency when it comes to the spend and how funds are spent and delivering to the public.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, that is a very big thank you to Ms. Nobuntu Webster, and she is the Deputy Leader of Build One South Africa, and she joined us here in studio, and she shared with us her party's perspective on the State of the Nation address and the work ahead. Now, we'll be watching closely to see how BOSA's focus on economic inclusion and accountability plays out in the parliamentary debates and committee rooms in the coming weeks. Stay tuned to Parliament TV.
I understood the slogan on a black shirt until I went to the ground and witnessed the senseless killings of hundreds of colored people. From Cape Town to Eldorado Park to the northern areas of Nelson Mandela Bay. I saw the pain in mothers' eyes. I saw families bury their loved ones. I saw tears in final goodbyes that should have never happened. On behalf of every patriot, I thank you for hearing and granting our leader, Gaita McKenzie's request to deploy the army to protect our communities. Thank you, Mr. President. Too many lives has been lost. Too many families has suffered. Today, the slogan carries true meaning. Colored lives do matter. I thank you, sir.
Bye. Welcome back to Parliament TV. In about 14 minutes, we will hear the official reply of the President on the debate points fielded by MPs to the President's State of the Nation address. I am now joined in the studio by the leader of the African Transformation Movement and Member of Parliament, Mr. Vuyo Zungula. Since he arrived to Parliament in 2019, Mr. Zungula's priorities have been centered on economic inclusion for Black South Africans, protecting rural communities, and enforcing oversight. We'll be discussing how these priorities translate into the action for the ATM. The ATM party has been a consistent and sharp critic of the president, and Mr. Zungula's reaction to this year's SONA was no exception. He accused the president of, in his words, prioritizing illegal immigrants over struggling South Africans. He now joins me in studio for an overdue conversation. Mr. Zungula, thank you very much for making time to talk to us here on Parliament TV, and welcome.
Thank you so much, and greetings to all of the viewers of Parliament TV.
You were very direct in your criticism following the SONA. Now, beyond the specific issue of immigration, what was your overall impression of the president's vision for the country? Did he address the real crisis facing South Africans in your view?
Look, our role as MPs or political parties in Parliament, it is not to speak issues that personally affect us, because we're not here in our personal capacity. We're here representing the people, and the frustrations of the people need to be expressed through us in Parliament, because we're the voice of the people. And the issue that we have with the SONA is that after 8 years, Mr. Ramaphosa being president, he still speaks as if it is 2019 when he recently was elected as president of the country. There's no sense of accountability. There's no sense of appreciation that each SONA, each promise, there's people with hope that the country is going to turn for the better and their lives are going to change. And every promise not kept, it is more South Africans, millions of South Africans being brokenhearted because they are failed by their president. Now, if you listen to our view, our deliberations in the debate, we did spell it out that it seems as if the ANC government or President Ramaphosa is failing to advance the interests of Black people. And we're making this assertion because, firstly, the ANC was formed by Amakhosi, it was formed by religious leaders, it was elected by an overwhelmingly Black majority. However, if you look at the stats when it comes to unemployment, poverty, lawlessness, it is Black people that are suffering in South Africa. And when we're making that assertion, we are not saying that whites or the whites should not be catered for in our country. But the reality is that if you go to Europe, it is a white-dominated country. Therefore, they are going to primarily serve the whites in those countries. But come to South Africa, whereby there's a majority which votes for a certain party, one would expect that that party that has been voted for by the majority, which is Black people, is going to advance the interests of Black people. So that is what we're not seeing when it comes to government programs. Instead, we're seeing Mr. Ramaphosa gaslighting South Africans, saying that they are vigilantes or vigilantism, whereas South Africans are expressing or dealing with issues that they're feeling on a daily basis. So that is our view on the issue.
Now, still on migration, you specifically mentioned the president is prioritizing illegal immigrants. So what evidence do you see of this, and what concrete measures were you hoping to hear from the president to address the concerns of South Africans who feel their jobs and opportunities are being taken?
Look, very, very simply, illegal immigration is a crime. That's a point of departure. If the president stood out and said, look, if you come to South Africa illegally, you have committed a crime. Therefore, law enforcement, must play its part. And also, if law enforcement is failing, South Africans are justified by assisting law enforcement when it comes to assisting, to create law and order in our country. Secondly, his own admission that 10,000 labor inspectors will be employed to deal with the issues of companies that prefer to employ illegal foreigners over South Africans. That is a step in the right direction. However, it needs to be met with political will. And we also wonder, remember, even himself in Palapala, he was employing a housekeeper from Namibia. And we know that a housekeeping role, it is not something, it's not a job that requires a special skill or is scarce or special skill. Therefore, we are viewing him as someone who's just opportunistic, yet even in his own farm where he was the sole member of a close corporation, he is one of the people that have contributed to this crisis of South Africans being overlooked for job opportunities in favor of non-South Africans. Again, when it comes to businesses, during the times of lockdown, there was a tweet that was shared by Uatim Tongana when she was saying that she walked in Belleville. She couldn't find a single South African operated business there. That shows the extent of displacement of South Africans in businesses. However, the president, remember last year when our kids were dying because of foods that were, or snacks that were bought from Spazas, his only solution was to say, let them register. He could not even, deal with the root causes of the problem. So that is the problem we have with him. If a problem does not affect him, he's not going to be touched, he's not going to be moved. And at the same time, when South Africans are acting, trying to resolve a problem which they face, he's going to come and gaslight South Africans. He's going to, make South Africans feel small in their own country, of which, that is not the duty of a president. A president is seen as a father of the nation. A president is ought to protect his own children, which is South African citizen. And when you protect your own children, you prioritize your own children. That does not mean you are hating the children but next door. All families do that. They prioritize and they cater for their own children first before they can extend their resources to the children in the community.
Now, when I was introducing this interview, I indicated that one of your key pillars is promoting black business, particularly in the micro and informal sector. Now, what specific legislative changes or oversight actions will the ATM be pushing for this year to ensure that government spending actually reaches these small black-owned enterprises?
We've taken part in portfolio committee meetings on finance, pushing that there needs to be a change in terms of the procurement of government to move towards SMMEs. SMMEs currently receive less than 20% of government spending. And we're saying that if you want to transform the economy as government, do not wait for the private sector to transform it for you, because that is not the interest of the private sector. However, as government, you've got a budget of over 3 trillion. Use that budget to transform the economy by prioritizing SMMEs. And you need to protect black business people, because black businesses in our country, once a black business is seen to be tendering or having contracts with government, there's that notion that they are corrupt. Therefore, that the government needs to change that notion, that narrative. Secondly, we've got black businesses in who are receiving funding from PIC. However, if they are not paying bribes or requested, if they are not acceding to the request of bribes by the PIC officials, those businesses get to be blacklisted, and there's more issues there. And then the last issue when it comes to businesses, small businesses, whether it's a municipality or most of these departments, they are made to pay bribes for their invoices to be paid. And most of their invoices, they're not even paid within 30 days. They are paid after 120 days. And for a small business, cash flow is very important. Therefore, you cannot survive for over 120 days without your invoice being paid. So that is what we've been trying to push to the ministry. And we've had the engagements even with the Deputy Minister of Finance on this issue. He has acceded to our views, and we're going to push aggressively on this issue, because for us to be successful, we need to be aggressive.
Now, you have a long-standing commitment to protecting rural communities, citing examples like Ekolobeni. Now, with a renewed focus on mining and resource extraction, what is your party's plan to ensure that the voices and land rights of South Africans are not trampled in pursuit of the mineral wealth?
The issue when it comes to communities, especially when it comes to the extracting of minerals, is how their voices get to be distorted through foreign-funded NGOs. Because of the money they have, they go to communities, and when they go to communities, they influence communities against their own interests as communities. Because we know it, many rural communities, lack of education, it is a problem. Lack of access to information, it is also a problem. Therefore, these foreign-funded NGOs, they use those issues or those gaps in order for them to advance their own interest as the foreign-funded NGOs. There's foreign-funded NGOs who basically are funded by American, British companies and individuals with a sole view of stopping any form of exploration, gas and oil exploration in South Africa. So we did introduce a bill as a party to regulate foreign-funded NGOs, just like political parties have got to declare when they receive foreign funding. Our NGOs need to do the same. There needs to be transparency in the sense that if a foreign-funded NGO goes to Xolobeni to say to the people of Xolobeni, mining is bad for you, etc., there needs to be transparency and that disclosure in the sense that the branding of that NGO, whether it is in the pamphlets, in the T-shirts, or whatever material, needs to be known that this particular NGO is funded by these particular individuals or companies. so that when people from our communities are listening to these NGOs, they're not only listening to the NGOs, but they also understand who is influencing or funding those NGOs to go interact with them as communities.
Now, in 2 minutes, because we are 2 minutes away from the House sitting, on the issue of basic services, we know that oversight is a critical function of Parliament, and many municipalities are failing to deliver basic services. So how will the ATM approach oversight this year to hold ministers and local government accountable? And are there any specific departments or failing entities we will be targeting to ensure that the delivery actually happens in less than a minute and a half?
On that issue, people have been seeing what is happening at a local government level. And therefore, it is our view that no matter how hard we can fight in Parliament in terms of holding the departments accountable, if the very same corrupt individuals remain presiding over those municipalities, nothing is going to change, because those municipal managers, those CFOs, those mayors and councillors, they're embedded with criminal networks. I'll make an example about the water tank mafias, whereby there's infrastructure, it is there, but the very same infrastructure is collapsed by the very same people I've mentioned, simply because they want to get their own businesses, which is the water tankers, to provide water for the people. Now, our view is that we've got an opportunity as South African citizens at the end of the year. We need to vote out those individuals and have ethical, people-centered leaders that will govern in the best interest of the people. Because the fact that we've got a crisis in local government, it can only be resolved in November when we remove the corrupt in favor of the ethical and people-centered ATM councillors, which will be contesting all municipalities in this coming election.
Mr. Zumula, I'd like to thank you very much for taking time off to speak to us here at Parliament TV. Well, thank you for staying with us. You can also follow the proceedings on our social media platforms using the hashtag SONA2026 or our handle at Parliament of RSA. We continue with the reflections here on Parliament, but let's see if the House has already started. Oh, I didn't see that. Welcome back. You're still watching Parliament TV, and we're coming to you live from our studios right here at Parliament. It is the day that everyone is expecting to hear the president responding to the issues that were raised during the two-day debate that took place on Tuesday and yesterday.
And of course, if you have just joined us, we are awaiting the president to take the podium and reply to some of the critique, some of the scrutinization that he received, and some of the praises that he received from last week's Thursday's SONA speech that he delivered on Thursday. Of course, we've had quite a few of the representatives of the political parties giving us their perspective on what it is that the president should have said, what they think the president is missing, and of course praising him on some of the achievements that his cabinet has taken upon. Of course, with that, we're about to know what the president's response is and how he seeks to close the gaps that these representatives have identified.
Number of issues arose during the debate, especially in relation to security and crime, where several MPs criticized the strategy to deploy the SALAF. But before that, let's perhaps look at what is happening in the House. We'll take you to the House.
Honorable members, there'll now be an opportunity for silence prayer or meditation. Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Order, honorable members, order. Honorable members, can we quietly take our seats for those who are coming into the House? Today marks the first day or the beginning of the Ramadan. Would like to take this opportunity and wish the Muslim community a happy Ramadan. Order, honorable members. The secretary will now read the order of the day.
Reply by the President on the State of the Nation address.
I now call the President to come and address the House.
Singola Ramabrana, Lona Kamerana Babrai, Gele 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 Gele.
Madam Speaker, the Chairperson of the Council of Provinces, Deputy President Shipokosha Mashatile, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable members, yesterday, former President Zuma was in the House, and I asked whether he's in the House today, but seems not. I wanted to extend my greetings to him. Let me take this opportunity, Madam Speaker, as you have alluded to, that this is the first day of Ramadan, and wish all the Muslims, both in our country and around our continent and around the world, Ramadan Mubarak, and wish them the best. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank you and the Chairperson of the Council of Provinces
and the other presiding officers for overseeing and chairing this very important joint sitting of Cabinet so well and so excellently. Yes, we can applaud. We can applaud our presiding officers for the excellent work that they have done. I want to welcome the participation of all members who participated in this debate and confirm that through their participation, whether it was negative participation or positive, that we are confirming that we are a nation of builders. We are a nation that does not run away from the problems that our country faces. We confront them. We do not lament and complain. We find solutions. When we faced with solutions, we do not fracture. We do not fall apart. We do not collapse. We unite and we work together to overcome those challenges. And so, as we conclude this debate on the State of the Nation address, our shared commitment to our country and to our people must guide us in every action that we take in the year ahead. The State of the Nation address is about building a stronger South Africa. It is about rising to the challenges that we face in our own country and around the world, and emerging more prosperous, more secure, and more resilient. There can be no doubt that we have made progress. Even those that deny that we have made progress know that we have made progress. Over 30 years, we have fundamentally improved the lives of South Africans. Over the last 8 years, our country faced some of the most intractable and difficult challenges. But working together, we have undertaken a program of institutional renewal by stabilizing what was weakened through state capture, restoring integrity and accountability, and rebuilding the capacity of the state to serve the people of South Africa. We have overcome a global pandemic that led to the worst decline in our economy, where our GDP contracted, perhaps for the first time, by 6%. We stood firm in the face of an attempted insurrection that was aimed at destabilizing our democracy. We rebuilt in the wake of a catastrophic flooding that engulfed 3 provinces and brought to an end more than 15 years of load shedding. Now, through effective macroeconomic management, we have been able to tackle an unsustainable debt burden where we ended up spending more service costs on our debt than we spent on health and education. To deal with all these challenges, we've had to rebuild the capacity of the state, but also embark on major reforms, whilst at the same time addressing the immediate challenges that our people are facing. All these efforts have been aimed at improving the lives of our people and to create a conducive environment for our economy to grow, Make no mistake, along the way, we've made errors. There have been missteps. We've made mistakes. But on a continuous basis, we have sought to do work that will advance the interests of South Africans. And over the last year, we have seen promising signs of recovery. Whether people like it or not, it has been there. Whether people think it's an illusion, it has been there. Whether people think we've turned the corner or not, they are blind because we are turning the corner. That is where we are. We see this, yes, in steps that we are taking to reduce unemployment and accelerate growth. We see the signs of recovery in improved public finances, in lower inflation, and growing business and consumer confidence. Although the progress is modest, much more modest than what I would want, the momentum of change, however, is building. Our task now is to sustain this momentum, to protect and build on the progress that we have made and are continuing to make, and to ensure that this progress results in tangible improvement in the life of every South African. Improved economic indicators may seem distant and abstract, but they have a real impact on our lives. Lower borrowing costs for the state frees up resources for health and education. It frees up resources for police and for better services. Reduced public debt enables us and enables the private sector to invest more of its capital in expanding production and in employing more people. A lower inflation rate reduces the cost of living for our people, enabling families to pay for food and basic services at a lower price. And a declining unemployment rate means an income for more families and hope for more young and middle-aged South Africans. And yet, as we have heard in this debate, we still have a long way to go, admittedly so. More than 10 million South Africans are estimated to live below the food poverty line. More than 11 million people are unemployed. We admit that. These are not simple statistics. These are individuals, these are families and communities that are facing great hardships, that experience violence on a daily basis, that run short of food, that face water cuts, and that long for a better life. We can stand on the sidelines and lament, as some have done in this debate, and throw insults, or we can roll up our sleeves and work together to change this reality, to build a stronger economy that benefits all South Africans, and to build a more equal society in which all South Africans have a place in their own country and in the sun. The State of the Nation address outlined the steps that we are taking as the government of national unity, working together with all social partners and all sections of society to achieve these objectives. We are determined to reach every person in this effort, and in that regard, we are determined to leave no one behind. Through the measures that we are taking, we are improving the lives of young people in our society. And through the Child Support Grant, for instance, which reaches easily 13 million children, we are protecting millions of children from the worst effects of poverty. through the free primary health care for pregnant women and children under 6, we are improving the health of children. This program, inaugurated by our first democratically elected President Nelson Mandela, continues and persists and shall not be ended because it is of benefit to our people. We are directing more resources to early childhood development. We have increased the subsidy for early childhood development and made grade R compulsory for all children, establishing a solid base for their entry into the education system. And we are focusing on strengthening literacy and numeracy in foundation phase. We have admitted that this is a process or a program we should have started right at the dawn of democracy. We are late and we have lost a lot of time. But as they say in the classics, better late than never. We are doing it now. And now through the measures that we are putting in place to end child stunting, we will improve the developmental outcomes and the life prospects of millions of children in our country. These measures will fundamentally change the prospect of an entire generation of children and each generation that will follow thereafter. On none of these issues is government working alone. We are working with social partners, service providers, non-governmental organizations that are committed to the development of our country, parents and communities. At this moment, more than 3.5 million people between ages 15 and 24 are not in education, are not in employment and training. We are working together to change that. In addition to the steady increase in the matric pass rate, which all of us are proud of, more and more learners from schools in poor communities are passing and achieving unbelievable university exemptions, something that many of us never thought could happen easily, as they were educated in some of the worst schools from an infrastructure point of view, from a distant point of view, from resources deep in the rural areas of our country. Gems, real, absolute wonderful gems are coming out. The bright children of this country are emerging. And more students from poor backgrounds are being supported to attend universities and colleges. In the 5 years from 2019 and 2024, funding from NSFAS nearly doubled from 27 billion to 54 billion rand. What we make available for children from poor families, families who would never have afforded to take their children to college or to university. Now we are undertaking a fundamental overhaul of our skills development system by embracing the dual skills development model that has served other countries that have and that have reduced their unemployment levels. This will produce the skills that our economy needs and enable more and more young people to find meaningful and lasting work and become professionals, become architects, become engineers, become technicians and artisans. We know that it will take many years for the economy to grow enough to create enough jobs for all those who are looking for work. That is why we introduced initiatives like the Presidential Employment Stimulus. Presidential because it brings together the work of all other departments, coordinates at the center of government and gets every department to participate, to make a contribution, yes, from their budgets, to make this work program or work initiative possible, which at the moment has created more than 2.5 million work and livelihood opportunities. Since it was established in 2020, remembering that we established it in the wake of COVID, the Youth Employment Service, which was also initiated by cooperation between the private sector, yes, and government, we have been able to bring in over 214 young people work experience opportunities. And this is a number that is growing. They are getting into industries such as manufacturing, renewable energy, tourism, logistics, finance, and the digital economy. And as I go around, I often meet young people who say, Mr. President, I am part of the YES graduates. I got in and I now have a full-time job. And thank you very much to South Africa, they say. Over 5.7 million young people are now registered on the SA Youth platform. To date, over 2 million earning opportunities have been secured by the young people who participate on this platform. Now, many young people in our country now know that there is this platform, and they flight their CVs. They flight whatever experience they have on this platform, and employers pile in and identify those that they would want to employ. It is a live program, and it is a unique program, possibly in the world, that many countries are learning from. These opportunities provide more than an income. They provide young people with skills and experience while also contributing to social development. Now, these opportunities are making a real difference in the lives of millions of young people. And of course, we would like it to grow to encompass many more young people, and they keep flocking in, flighting their CVs on this system. And they are helping to prepare them for a better future. Yet we know that will make the greatest difference in people's lives are jobs and real livelihood opportunities. What will make the greatest difference is accelerated economic growth. A growing economy means expanding the opportunities for all, and it also means hope. We have not experienced the excitement of the promise of rapid growth for almost 20 years as a country, but we are on the cusp of achieving it now. We are focused on rebuilding the economy and driving investment. We should not underestimate the scale of the task that lies ahead, nor diminish the progress that we have made. For our economy to grow, we are steadily addressing the various impediments that have been identified as holding our economy back. Load shedding was one of those that held our economy back, was debilitating our economy, lowering production, raising costs, and deterring investments. Now, where are we? We have effectively ended load shedding, and investments are now flowing in. We have stopped load shedding. We have stopped unreliable power that has raised costs, that stops production and deters investment. Wherever I went in the world and other places, they kept talking about energy. Improve the energy supply in your country, we will come and invest. That is precisely what we did, and that is precisely what we are doing. overburdened infrastructure and inefficiency at our ports and on our rail lines have for years been reducing our competitiveness and harming our export industries. We are improving operational performance through investment, increased capacity, and far-reaching reforms, through which we are even crowding in partners on a concessionary basis to bring in their money so that we can improve our network industries. We are addressing the skills mismatch between what young people have and what our economy needs through an overhaul of the education and training system. To respond to low levels of investment and policy uncertainty, we are strengthening policy formulation and reducing regulatory burdens. Ministers during their budget votes will outline precisely some of the active steps that we are taking to reduce regulatory burdens that many of our business people raise with us. We have had to tackle poor governance, diminish state capacity, and yes, we are tackling corruption by focusing on the professionalization of the public service and improved efficiency, and the modernization of our procurement system is something that is now going to happen. We know that crime and insecurity remain significant impediments to growth, which is why we are intensifying the fight against organized crime, gang violence, gun crime, and gender-based violence. Now, I know that in this House there are those who say, Mr. President, deploy the Defense Force to come and help the police in our areas. And there are those who say, no, don't do so. Now, we are going to deploy the Defense Force, as we said, and we are going to add the Eastern Cape, because the Eastern Cape people have added their voice to this. And yes, we are going to capacitate our police. We are going to make sure that the Defense Force becomes focused in ensuring that we rid our areas and our country of gang violence. We did deploy the Defense Force working together with the police on illegal mining areas. And we were able to tackle that. It has returned in another form, but we are tackling it. Illegal miners are now forcing communities and people out of their houses, but the Defense Force is on their wake. And the good thing, as we heard on this platform from Honorable Member from Kagiso, the community is ready and willing to work with our security forces, something that we welcome. Our economy has also been constrained by a challenging macroeconomic environment, which is why we've been reducing high debt service costs and supporting lower inflation, and the interest rates are tapering down. Perhaps one of the most immediate impediments to faster economic growth is the dysfunctionality in many of our municipalities. We are addressing this through an overhaul of our local government system, through the review that we are now busy with of the white paper, and through direct interventions in municipalities that are in trouble. The transformation of our network industries is in the end the platform on which rapid, inclusive economic growth will be achieved. Already, South Africans are feeling the benefits of some of the changes, from improved supply of electricity to the return to service of commuter rail lines to the reduction in the cost of data as well. In 2022, we had 205 days of load shedding. In 2023, we had 330 days. This was the most severe period in our energy crisis that stretched back more than 15 years. To address this, We established the National Energy Crisis Committee, or NECOM as we call it. There were groans from some quarters who said, yet another committee, yet another structure, yet another task team. We have heard the same tired refrain from some speakers in this debate. Yet, what NECOM did was to bring together all the key players to focus on the immediate tasks that are necessary to end load shedding, to restore the integrity of our power system, and to lay the basis for stable, sustainable, and universal access to electricity into the future. It succeeded because it was able to draw on the skills, the capabilities, the resources, and the efforts of a broad range of departments and public institutions, as well as the best experts in South Africa and around the world, and to build a platform for collaboration with social partners. It was never about meetings and talk shops. It was about taking a hands-on approach to solving the problem, making sure that things do actually get done and that they get done quickly. That's what it was about. The experience of NECOM shows that complex problems need collaborative solutions. Now, through its Generation Recovery Plan, Eskom has increased its average energy available factor from 56% in April 2023 to around 65 and edging towards 70% at the moment. There is currently a pipeline of more than 220 gigawatts of renewable energy projects at various stages of development. Now you can ask Minister Kosiensu Ramokgopa how we measure those gigawatts, and he explains it so well in neutrons and electrons and all that. So spend time with him because he will explain all that to you if it is Latin to you. Now, the Minister of Electricity and Energy is leading the process of building more than 14,000 kilometers of new transmission lines and an innovative new model, of funding the costs that is inherent in this, and also ensuring that we have a transmission line that is going to sustain all these neutrons that are going to be uplifted onto our grid. For an economy that has long been held back by energy constraints, these developments are potentially transformative. For homes that have suffered years of electricity supply interruptions, the end of load shedding is a relief. I saw what a relief it was one day when I was at Hout Bay on the quay, on the harbor, and a young man of 5 years came to me and said, "Mr. President, please give us electricity. I want to play on my PlayStation." And then I knew what all this meant, because that is what we needed to do. Now, this is good for business. It is good for the removal of obstacle to growth. Now, the next phase of our energy transformation is the establishment, yes, and the restructuring of the state-owned enterprise, which is Eskom. The establishment of Eskom to generate electricity with others, for the transmission entity, and for distribution. Now, this is a complex process, and one of the most important reforms our country will ever face. It requires detailed technical work and a strong coordination across different entities. This is why I have said that this work will be done through NECOM, in which participates the Minister of Electricity and Energy, the Minister of Finance, the Presidency, and all the officials, as well as those who have been giving us support and assistance. And as I said, the work they have to do is going to have to deal with the assets of ESCOM and how we are going to deal with the transmission entity and all that. I have no doubt whatsoever that all this work will culminate in a solution which will be put before me so that Cabinet can then take a decision going forward. Now, the value of establishing these types of structures is to enhance intergovernmental cooperation, as well as breaking down the silos that have often given rise in government. Drawing on our experience in energy and what we have established as the National Logistics Crisis Committee, we believe that we will be able to make great progress. And thanks to the work of the NLCC, as we call it, we have seen a real turnaround in the performance of our freight lines and ports. The volume of goods transported by rail is increasing year on year, and the efficiency of our port terminals has improved. Collaboration between Transnet and the private sector has, for example, seen a 50% reduction in security incidents where people were stealing copper cables on our pole line to Richards Bay. The total length of cable stolen has been reduced from 180 kilometers of stolen cable in 2024 to just 58 or 59 kilometers. And we want to see that reduced even more and that criminality to come to an end. The reform of our logistics system is well underway through strong collaboration between the Department of Transport, the Presidency, and the National Treasury as well. This year will be a watershed moment for our logistics reform as private rail companies begin to operate our freight rail network on a concessionary basis, and for private sector participation to initiate port and rail infrastructure. In undertaking these far-reaching changes, we are essentially strengthening the state and we are rebuilding our state-owned enterprises. We are mobilizing investment on a massive scale from a range of public and private sources into electricity generation and transmission, into our ports and rail, and into our water infrastructure. We are mobilizing new skills, new capabilities, and new technologies. But let me be clear, we are retaining the public ownership for those who believe that we are privatizing. All we are doing is to bring in strategic partners, which we have done in the past. Private train operators will carry freight on rail lines that are owned by the state. Private electricity producer will provide electricity to consumers across a transmission grid that is owned by the state. Through these changes, we are strengthening the financial position and the operational performance of entities like ESCOM, Transnet, and PRASA. We are making them more competitive and more efficient. We will now apply the successful method that we have used in energy and logistics to other urgent challenges that confront our country today. We are already working to establish a National Water Crisis Committee to restore a reliable supply of water to our municipalities that face disruptions right now, but also to ensure water security in the long term. Minister Majodina this afternoon has made an announcement of increasing the capacity of ensuring that the reservoirs capacity is increased, particularly the Gauteng area. Like electricity and logistics, the crisis in water has many causes stretching back many years. Like electricity and logistics, we have already embarked on a far-reaching reform process that will fundamentally change the way that the water sector in our country functions and serves the people of our country. Now, this in the end will enable investment in water infrastructure to meet the growing demand and build our resilience to climate change alongside institutional reforms to enable greater investment and stronger regulation of the water service delivery. It will also require mobilizing resources and expertise to support municipalities that are in crisis and make interventions more quickly and more effectively where they consistently fail to meet set norms and standards. Now, the National Water Crisis Committee is building on the work that we have already done by the Water Task Team chaired by the Deputy President, by Operation Vulindlela, by the Department of Water and Sanitation, and by various respective municipalities to drive local production and create more jobs in sectors with great potential. We are finalizing our national industrial policy, focusing on decarbonization, diversification, and digitization. This will contribute to building an economy that is equipped for the future, drawing on the vast capabilities and the abundant resources that we have, both natural resources and human capital resources. As we build an economy for the future, a number of industries in our country are currently in distress. The presidency, together with the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, and the Department of Electricity and Energy, as many of these are distressed because of energy affordability. We're working with individual companies and sectors to develop short-term plans to stave off closure and save local jobs. Among the sectors that are involved are cement, the auto sector, the steel sector, the pharmaceuticals, as well as the various smelters that we have in our country, whether it's manganese or chrome. In addition, there are sectors such as oil and gas that require coordination across government departments and planning together with business and labor. In all these efforts, we have to show determination and urgency. It is not only in the area of economic growth and transformation where collaboration, partnership, and focus needs to play a key role. We are also establishing a dedicated initiative to oversee the reform of the criminal justice system, leaning on the successful model of Operation Vulindlela. This initiative will be led by the best experts that our country has to offer. It will work closely with the South African Police Service, the National Prosecuting Authority, the Special Investigating Unit, and other law enforcement agencies to drive a comprehensive reform program. Our country, other countries rather, when faced with the threat of organized crime and the penetration of criminal syndicates, have been able to reform their criminal justice systems and to restore the rule of law. that is precisely that we are also going to focus on. We have the resources and ability to do so. We will not allow criminals and criminal syndicates and gangs to prevail. We are going to go after them and we will deal with them. One of the most important developments in recent years has been the mobilization of society to end violence that men perpetrate against women. Faced with this pandemic of violence, South Africans came together to develop a national strategic plan against gender-based violence and femicide. And since the adoption of the plan, government departments, agencies, NGOs, business organizations, sporting bodies, educational institutions, and others have been working together to implement the 6 pillars of this plan. Now, in working on this, the implementation of this plan, they understood that gender-based violence and femicide cannot be stopped by government alone. It must be stopped by society. But it must also be stopped by this parliament. Since the law was passed, and since you crafted the law that you should appoint the council members, I have been waiting on you to finalize the appointment of the council. And the women of our country have been impatient, waiting for this parliament to finalize the appointment of the council. Over the past 5 years, South Africa has made progress in critical areas of gender-based violence. We have strengthened the laws, expanded survivor-centered services through the Tutuzela care centers. Although I must say that we still have too few Tutuzela centers, I want us to have more Tutuzela centers so that the women of our country can have refuge. We have rolled out victim-friendly rooms at police stations and invested in women's economic empowerment as a critical pillar of prevention. And for the first time, we have a national prevalence study that gives us clear evidence of the scale and drivers of gender-based violence. These gains matter, and they show what is possible when the state and civil society act together. And yes, we are going to move towards having social workers in the police stations, because that is going to be one of the game changers. The classification of gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster enables all spheres of government to act with greater speed, reduces the fragmentation of effort, and establishes a clear command, coordination, and accountability framework. It gives both government and broader society far greater capacity and impetus to implement the measures that I outlined in the State of the Nation address. Now, these measures include the mobilization of all sectors of society to challenge harmful attitudes and practices. We are continuing the extensive work already underway to promote women's economic empowerment, strengthening our law enforcement and scale-up survivor center support. The premiers who spoke during the debate highlighted the progress that is being made across the country in strengthening local economies, improving service delivery, and investing in the future. I was very pleased to hear the articulation by our premiers of the work that they are doing, showing that South Africa is a unitary state and provinces are taking the lead in a number of areas in infrastructure investment, from the resuscitation of the Pilanesberg Airport in Northwest to the rehabilitation of roads and bridges in KwaZulu-Natal, Then there is the innovative partnership between Limpopo provincial government and mining companies to mobilize funding for the construction and maintenance of local roads. Provinces like the Free State are investing in education, refurbishing and maintaining ECD centers, building new schools and hostels, ensuring that all learners from poor communities attend no-fee schools and are part of the school nutrition program. Mpumalanga has launched the e-learning program, Ubuhle Bezulu, which is designed to bridge the digital divide through the use of smart devices. We welcome the initiative by KwaZulu-Natal to forge provincial skills compacts with the private sector in logistics, in energy, in construction, and the digital economy. We also heard about how Mpumalanga is investing in health, appointing doctors to community health centers and building new clinics and hospitals, including the Middelburg Regional Hospital and the Mapulaneng Hospital. Limpopo is providing leadership on tackling the country's water challenges, establishing operational war rooms in the Mopani district, particularly in Giani, to ensure that water reaches the remaining 5 to 20 villages. The Premier of the Northern Cape outlined the work that they are doing and have done in the province to drive investment in mining, in renewable energy, in infrastructure, and in education and health. It is these efforts that have contributed to the steady improvement of employment. In the Eastern Cape, roads are being built. In the Western Cape, the focus is on fighting criminality, and the Premier spoke with great passion here about the need to tackle gangs. And so all our provinces are doing much work to improve the lives of our people in our country, and that pleased me no end. Gauteng has introduced the Rapid Land Release Program to enable investment and expand access to affordable housing. And the Western Cape is also contributing to job creation by expanding tourism, increasing air access, and promoting foreign direct investment in key sectors. And the Free State is setting an example in the provision of government services through the Integrated Services Program to reach rural and underserved communities. Now, this initiative brings together various government entities and departments to offer comprehensive services to communities, ranging from the issuance of title deeds, birth certificates, and IDs to business support. Now, the Premier of the Free State spoke about how the loss of the province's #1 status in matric results has spurred the province to do better and to regain its position. She spoke with a little bit of pain that they have lost that #1 slot to KZN. But we welcome that determination, as provinces should be learning from each other. She promised that they will be back to the #1 slot once again, and we wish her well. Now, we want our provinces to make sure that we work together as a unitary state. They should be driven by improvements and lessons that they see in other provinces, so that they not only improve their matric passes, but they improve their health outcomes. They improve their service delivery by learning from each other. They should learn what other provinces are doing to reduce crime. They should also learn from each other on infrastructure development and maintenance and many other areas. because healthy competition encourages innovation and improves efficiency, accountability, and transparency. I say this because they should never be afraid to see how others are doing so that they can also learn and improve. So in the end, you can correctly say KZN learned what Free State has been doing for years, and they improved their education outcomes. And similarly, other provinces should do the same. I know for a fact that the Northern Cape has been learning from the Free State. That is why they've had such great improvement. We have seen the value of government working together as they do so through the district development model. The DDM seeks to eliminate silos between government departments and the three spheres of government. A number of ministers and deputy ministers and premiers who spoke here spoke about the efficacy of being able to work together, and more particularly about the district development model, because this system further aims to strengthen integrated planning and coordination, improving service delivery, eliminating fragmentation, and ensuring inclusive and people-centered development in our country. This system brings together national, provincial, and local government and stakeholders like organized business, labor and community organizations, and in particular, a district to collectively address challenges. Where the DDM has been integrated into government operations and structures, it has begun to make meaningful and measurable progress. For example, the work done by the Presidential eThekwini Working Group in line with the district development model approach has contributed to significant improvements in the city. Once again, eThekwini or Durban has become the tourist mecca of South Africa once again. And it has attracted investors to come back not only to build hotels or to refurbish the very famous hotels along the beach front. It has attracted many other businesses. By bringing national, provincial, and local government together with business, labor, civil society, and residents, we have seen the improvements in delivery of service like water and sanitation, and the recovery of key industries, increased business sentiment, and improved efficiency of the Durban port. In the State of the Nation, I said our Constitution calls on us to redress the injustices of the past, to build a society that is equal and just. We cannot do that, remembering that the marquee objective of our Constitution, which is embedded in the opening lines of our Constitution, talks about redressing the injustices of the past. We cannot do that without transforming the various aspects of South African life, but more particularly the economy. It cannot be acceptable to anyone in this house for African people, colored people, and Indian people to be poorer and have fewer opportunities than white people. It cannot be acceptable. And remembering that that was the order of the day in the past, and it can therefore never, 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 never be acceptable that that should continue. Because that is what defined our life under apartheid, where it was legislated, where it was practice and protocol, convention, and experience that Africans, Indians, and coloreds should forever be denied by law to participate in the economy of the country. It cannot be acceptable that anyone in this house would want women to earn less than men and to own less than men and to run fewer businesses than men. It is something that we simply must never accept. And yet there are people in this house, in this very house, in the debate, who tell us to get rid of the very measures that have been put in place to correct the gross injustice of the past. It cannot be. We cannot accept that. They say we must rid our country of broad-based Black economic empowerment, falsely claiming.
Order, honorable members, can we please allow the president to address the House? Order, honorable members. Honorable members, can you please allow the president to address the House?
President, take a question.
He's been sitting there attentively listening to your inputs. Now he's responding to you. You are disturbing him. Please allow him an opportunity to address us. You may proceed, Honorable President.
He must call them out by name.
Now I can see that this is leading to a lot of excitement. Can I finish, please? Can I finish? Now, you know, this issue touches a very raw nerve in me because it is one of the principal issues that we sought to get rid of from this country, the inequality and the exclusion of Black people from participating in the economy of the country. Now, so you know, Minister Mantashe and I interface with this issue so directly in the mining industry, where by law, workers were divided, that white workers who did exactly the same work as what Black workers did would be advantaged and be given a certificate, what we call a blasting certificate. And Black workers were refused, were denied to get a blasting certificate by law. And the white workers get 10 times, if not more, money than Black workers. And that was simply the disempowerment of Black workers. And it is for this reason that it touches a raw nerve with people like me. And yet, the progress we have made since the introduction of the laws that we have put in place is undeniable. We have seen real changes in ownership patterns, and we still need to see more, including businesses that are owned by women. We've seen changes in management control. We need to see more. We've seen enterprise development and skills development. It is no accident that between 2002 and 2023, Black African households experienced real income growth of 46%, and colored households 29%, and Indian households 19%. It is no accident that the level of poverty, yes, in Black African population fell by 67% in 2006 to 44% in 2023. Nor is it any accident that the level of poverty in the colored community fell from 43% to 25% in the same period. Now, despite this progress, the average income of white households is still nearly 5 times higher than that of Black African households. This is the gulf that we must close. through deliberate and sustained efforts to expand opportunity. This is the gulf that we must close through the economic empowerment of those who were prevented from accessing those opportunities. Now is not the time to abandon Black economic empowerment. Now is not the time to make it, now is the time to make it even more effective. Now, just remember what our forebears who drafted the Freedom Charter said. They said, these freedoms we will fight for side by side throughout our lives until we have won our liberty. We should all be working together to ensure that we rid our country of the injustices of the past. So therefore, we must see broad-based Black economic empowerment, not as a cost to the economy, but as an investment in the sustainable growth of our economy. And that is why I announced in the State of the Nation that we are undertaking a review of broad-based Black economic empowerment framework to ensure that it supports greater transformation and inclusive growth. During the course of this debate, MPs have spoken on behalf of their political parties. Now, when they are out there in the streets, they obviously campaign for their political parties. But in cabinet, there are no parties. There are no ANC, DA, IFP, PA, UDM, GOOD, FF+, or PAC, or Al-Jama ministers. Every minister and deputy minister is appointed by the president, not on a party political basis, is part of a collective working together to implement a common program to medium-term development plan. So no minister or deputy minister should be publicly claiming their work in the GNU as an achievement of their party. In many cases, the basis for their achievements were laid before they even came into office. And in many cases, the work that we realize that will also realize the objectives will be the work that we do together. Our successes and our achievements are the achievements of a collective. By the same measure, we are collectively responsible for our mistakes and our shortcomings. It is our commitment to the principle of partnership and shared responsibility that has made this government of national unity to work, and that will stand us in good stead for the work ahead. We are undertaking the various tasks that we've been given by our people in a global environment that is uncertain, unstable, and that is rapidly changing. During our presidency of the G20, we set out our clear vision and program for a better, more inclusive and peaceful and more equal world. Most of the G20 countries overwhelmingly aligned themselves with the vision that South Africa put on the table. It is a vision that is shared by most members of the United Nations, BRICS nations, and the non-aligned movement. We will continue to work with like-minded countries and on all available international platforms to advance that vision and to implement that program. The African continent remains the center of our foreign policy. South Africa is now the chair of SADC, for the next 2 years, and we will use that position to promote peace, integration, and economic development in our region. We have also been elected to the AU Peace and Security Council. In this capacity, we will be working with other countries to promote peace efforts on the continent. At the AU Summit in Addis Ababa this past weekend, we chaired the ad hoc high-level committee on South Sudan, known as the C5, which is working to stabilize the situation in South Sudan, ensuring that elections take place and that a sustainable resolution to the conflict in that country is achieved. Now, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, has been my envoy in making sure that South Africa continues to be involved and to lead the process of stabilizing that country. We do this because a better Africa and a better world are in our national interest. At the same time, we are having to adapt very quickly to changing circumstances. We cannot rely on the goodwill and fine sentiments of those who pronounce them on world platform. That is why we're being more assertive in our trade policy, seeking out new markets and reaching trade agreements that support our growth and job creation efforts. We are intensifying our efforts to mobilize investments into our country and find investment opportunities for our businesses abroad. This relies on a stronger, more capable state. Our foreign missions must be focused on driving trade and investment. The Deputy President and myself and ministers will continue to scour various countries in the world, opening markets and reaching agreements. We are working to ensure that our departments, from DTIC to agriculture, to mineral resources, to tourism, are aligned around a common trade strategy. Amid the global turmoil, we have set a clear path to advance the interests of our country and its people, and we must now pursue that path with even greater focus and vigor. 30 years ago, South Africans came together to craft a constitution that has been dubbed as one of the very best constitutions in the world, which defines the values and the principles of our democracy. It places on it and on us a responsibility to correct the injustices of the past and to ensure that all people would progressively be able to exercise their right to housing, healthcare, food, water, social security, and education. As a nation, we have traveled far in giving effect to the promise of our Constitution, but we have much further to go. It is therefore fitting that this year, South Africans will once again come together to forge a vision for our country into the future and to agree on a program of actions that we need to achieve to make that vision alive. This is the year in which the national dialogue will reach every corner of our country. This dialogue is led by a steering committee of more than 100 people representing 30 sectors of our society. It continues to be guided and inspired by the eminent persons group of prominent South Africans, drawn from many fields and backgrounds. We have all made a contribution to social cohesion and nation building. It is ultimately the people of this country engaged in dialogue and united in action who will determine the path our country takes. Dialogue and partnership are essentially woven into the fabric and the DNA of our society. They have enabled our country to overcome great difficulties, from the crime of apartheid to the political violence of our transition, to a devastating global pandemic and to a persistent energy crisis. It is the spirit that infuses the work of the Government of National Unity, that informs our approach to collaboration and coordination, that encourages us to draw on the resources and capabilities from across society and to solve difficult and almost at times intractable problems. It is dialogue and partnership that will take our country forward. It is the people of South Africa working together who will sustain the momentum of our recovery and who will accelerate progress to an inclusive economy and a transformed society. As I conclude, I want to extend my gratitude to the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, for his support and leadership that he continues to provide to me and to government for all the work that we do together. And I want to thank ministers and deputy ministers for diligently implementing the actions that are contained in the medium-term development plan. Now, the Deputy President and I are currently spending considerable amount of time evaluating ministers and deputy ministers as well as their directors general. This is part of an effort to promote accountability, to engender a culture of performance and ensure action. I am grateful. I'm grateful to the leaders of the political parties in the Government of National Unity, who I meet regularly to discuss matters of national interest. And their contributions have been very useful in managing the challenges our country faces. And I thank all of you honorable members who have participated in this debate and who are present here. As the elected representatives of the people of South Africa, we have much to do. Now is the time for action, for greater effort, and for faster progress. Together and in unity, we can do it. Last year, I spoke about the imagery of weaver birds that work together to build their nest. Today, I want to end by using another imagery of beavers who work together to build their own nest, but they do much more than that. Beavers are like a team of engineers. They work together to fell branches, pack mud houses, to raise dams and lodges, and create a safe neighborhood of deep water around their home. Beavers are a reminder that real building is rarely a solo act. And think of a river that runs too fast, that is too exposed, too uncertain. One beaver cannot change it, but a community of beavers can do so. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They start with what's in reach. One drags a branch, another places it, others pack mud and strengthen the weak points. Bit by bit, they raise a wall, they raise a dam and shape a lodge, not as a monument, but as a home. And what does that teamwork create? Not just a structure, but a safer environment, calmer water, protection from danger, space for life to grow. Their work turns risk into refuge. It doesn't happen through noise or ego. It happens through coordination, consistency, a shared purpose, and cooperation. That's what working together looks like, and that's how it should be. We don't all have the same role, but every role matters. Some people plan, some people lift, Some people reinforce. Some people spot the leaks early and fix them before they become disasters. When we build like that, patiently, practically, together, we don't just complete a project. We complete and create a neighborhood. We create a nation, a place where others can thrive because we choose to cooperate and to work together. So let's build like beavers, with urgency, with unity, and with the quiet determination to make something strong, strong enough to hold, something that lasts and something that shelters more than just ourselves. Let us be the real builders, honorable members. Let us be the real builders of South Africa, working together, like we are in the government of national unity. Thank you very much.
Now, order, honorable members. On behalf of myself and the National Council of Provinces, we would like to thank the President for responding to the debate, but also thank honorable members for your participation during the 2 days and even today. I just want to remind members once again that let us remember our rules, our joint rules, particularly if the two houses are in session, but also when individually our houses are sitting, let's remember the rules that we had agreed to. Again, I would ask once more that when a member has not been recognized, please don't open the mic and speak on it because it does disturb those who are making their inputs on the podium. While interjection is allowed, let's also try and respect one another so that people can be heard. Today, you have just been so wonderful. And I really like to thank all of you for having been the best members in this session. Now, we're coming to the end of our business. The joint sitting is adjourned.
Some beavers still. We are happy ANC and MK got a room last night. The beavers must stop stealing.
Le na le stop o riksha bana ba batho to Russia.
Just
Because for the past 3 days, we've witnessed our parliament in full session. From the fierce opening salvos on Tuesday to the robust provincial voices on Wednesday, and finally to the president taking the podium to have the last word today. It's been a marathon of democratic discourse.
A marathon indeed, Tsepo. And like any good marathon, it had a strong start, a grueling middle, and a defining finish. Looking back at Tuesday, the battle lines were drawn early. We had the heavyweights, Ministers Steenhuisen, Mackenzie, and Chabeni defending the GNU's track record with data and determination. But the opposition came out swinging. Mr. Malema of the EFF didn't hold back, accusing the president of losing control of his own cabinet and failing on basic service delivery. The MK party's daughter, Litchfield Chabalala, and Mr. Van Rooyen also kept up the pressure, insisting the SONA was merely a wish list.
It was a fiery start, but by Wednesday, the conversation shifted to the heart of the country, the provinces. We heard directly from premiers of Mpumalanga, Limpopo, the Northern Cape, and the Western Cape. They brought the boardroom table of the National Assembly to the dusty roads and bustling towns of their regions. The Minister of Transport kept us focused on infrastructure, and the Minister of DIRCO reminded us that South Africa's voice doesn't end at our borders.
And that brings us to today, the president's reply. After 2 days of listening to the frustrations and the praise, the president returned to the podium not to deliver a new speech, but to defend the one he gave on Thursday last week.
That's right. He faced a House that was at times not agreeable, but through the applause and noise, the president stood his ground. He acknowledged the GNU is a complicated formation, but insisted it is stable and functional.
And of course, he didn't just trade political barbs, though. He used his time to respond to specific policy challenges raised during the debate. To Mr. Malima's blistering critique on jobs, he pointed to the employment figures and defended the EPWP as a vital stepping stone. To the DA's Minister Steenhuisen, who called for a more inclusive economy beyond BEE, he spoke on economic inclusion and the second phase of growth. And to the concerns raised by the Premier of the Western Cape and others on local government failures, he doubled down on the district development model as the solution to fix our municipalities.
He also made a significant promise regarding the Expropriation Act, giving his assurance that land grabs should not be tolerated, a direct response to the fears and criticisms raised by parties like the FF Plus and the ACDP during the 2-day debate.
So, Tsepo, if you step back and look at the week as a whole, what's the big picture? On Tuesday, the opposition painted a picture of a nation in peril. On Wednesday, the provinces grounded their debate in local reality. And today, the president tried to stitch it all together with a message of stability and gradual progress.
I think that's a fair assessment, Thembinkosi, and the major fault lines are clear. The GNU parties are rallying around a message of unity and delivery, however slow. The opposition from the EFF to the MK Party, the African Transformation Movement, Action SA and others are demanding radical accountability and painting the GNU as a compromise that isn't delivering for the poor. The battle for the narrative of South Africa's future has been well and truly joined.
And while the debates in the chamber may be over, the real work now begins in the corridors of power, in the committees, and in the provinces. And for us, this wraps up a significant week of live coverage.
Oh, it certainly does. From the 2-hour build-ups each day to the final gavel falling just now, we hope we've brought you closer to the heart of democracy.
But before we go, we want to extend a sincere thank you to all the political parties who participated in our build-up shows leading to this moment. Your insights have been invaluable in framing the issues. It's also important to note that invitations to appear on the program were extended to various political parties represented here in Parliament. While not everyone was able to join us today, we appreciate the dialogue we're able to foster. For continued analysis and updates, check the link in the description, and we'll see you in the next one.
From now, from all of us here, from behind the scenes, from myself, Tepo Mori, my colleague here, Thembinkosi, please stay engaged with the issues that shape our nation, stay informed, and have a peaceful afternoon. Goodbye.
Let's switch. And, you know, my phone is never on volume. But because during the break, I was waiting.